Okay. Good morning, everyone. At this time, I'll call the Audit and Control Committee meeting to order for the March 19th meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone here this morning. First order of business is the approval of the minutes from the February meeting. If you have no corrections, I'd entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Oh, and a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Next is our privilege of the floor. If anyone wishes to address the committee, please come down front and do so. No one present at this time. We'll move into our other agenda items. First four items are for discussion. First one is renew and amend resolution 185-25. It's the acceptance of funds from the FAA for upgrade security gates design at the Chautauqua County Dunkirk Airport.
Morning, everybody. Brian Bates, System Manager for Airports. First one, these are just when the grants come back between the state and federal portions, a dollar amount, $1 was flip-flop between our share and state share, and we can't submit it to the state for the state funding unless it's exact on the resolution. So that's the amendment to the first two.
So this is in total $50,000 to design a new gate. Did I get that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And who came up with that number? Was that our consultant who came up with that number?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Well, last time I used that gate, it worked just fine, but I'll leave it.
My only question would be, we were proposing to spend $50,000 for this gate design project. What have we previously spent on designing a gate as well?
I mean, the other one was included in an entire fence project, so this is, the bid process, the going out, doing, obviously designing the gates, managing the construction project as it goes forward, so that's all the costs that are incurred in those design portions of the gates, so.
I mean, this isn't the place to go die on this gate, but
Right.
I am just totally uncomfortable with the process of our consultant coming up with estimates like this, which, now correct me if I'm wrong on this, which they in turn is a design process they're going to help manage.
I mean, it also goes out for, all their fees go out and by an independent organization to make sure
Sure,
that
they're an agent or a middleman for us.
Yeah, we have to submit that, with any FAA grant, we have to send out all of our stuff from our consultants. The company will go through and make sure it's in line with the way they're supposed to be charging and all the fees are
Sure,
in
I
accordance with
understand.
that. So.
They're in the value chain though, and
Yep.
it just is, to me, untenable that the taxpayers, in this case of the United States, there are a bunch of them in my district, are being asked to fund something, $50,000 for a gate study, not the gate, just the study.
Well, this is everything. This is a build construct project, so
It says-
that, yeah.
Oops.
Well, it's
Well, then
design, but it's a build construct project, so that's the entire project.
Okay, well, because
Yes.
it just says upgrade security gates,
Yeah.
design.
Yeah, and this is something that was already approved.
No, no,
already.
yeah, I
No,
know,
I
I
understand that. But,
All right, so this is actually to build the thing,
Yes, yeah, that's the whole,
better.
whole package.
Yeah, because it says design here.
Yeah.
So. Anyway,
Yep.
my apologies. We should
And
move
also
on.
clarify, so like, our funding isn't taxpayer dollars, our funding comes from, fees on airline tickets, not tax dollars.
And fuel.
Other than, obviously, local share, tax dollars.
It doesn't say, it just says design too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're clear that this also
Yeah.
is
Well, the project
the cost
itself
of
is
the
a
project.
design build, I don't know, yeah, it says design, but the whole project, because it's a bill fund project, it's
What-
design
what-
build project.
What does it say, design build?
It doesn't,
Can, all right.
yeah.
Somebody please
The
change
quotes-
change
Yeah.
that to design build.
Yeah, it makes a difference. for
Right.
sure. Yeah, and we've talked about this before. and
Sure.
and, that's expensive for just the
Correct.
design.
Yep, no, I understand.
The quotes have came back for this project though as well, right, Ryan?
Yes, quotes are back for it. They split it, well, they did split this, the project itself is all in one, but they split it to get it paid for because it was a bill project originally, and we already accrued expenses. So by splitting them, and the quotes we're back at, we were able to pay for the portion that the county's already funded money up front for the project, so.
Any other questions? Not hearing any, we'll move on to number 2, which is to renew and amend Resolution 202-25. It's acceptance of funds from the FAA and DOT for the design phase of the project for the rehabilitation taxiway A West at Chautauqua County Dunkirk Airport.
And this is design only?
This is design only,
Okay.
yes. And same situation, came back, the numbers were flip-flopped.
All right, well, if we got to vote on it some point down the line, I'll vote no.
And these are all good past resolutions, it was just, the
Yeah.
state portion is flopped.
Questions, comments? Not hearing any, we'll move into number 3, which is to renew and amend Resolution 9-26. It's apply for and accept FAA and New York State DOT funds for rehabilitate taxiway B North design at Chautauqua County Dunkirk Airport. Questions on this one? Not hearing any, we'll move into number 4, which is to renew and amend Resolution 1026. It's to apply for the accept FAA and New York State DOT funds to rehabilitate runway 15-33 design at Chautauqua County Dunkirk Airport. And questions on this last one? A lot of runway stuff that's
Yep,
getting
yeah.
redesigned.
Yeah, the 1533 in Dunkirk is getting very rough, so it's hitting it's well past its useful life.
And you-
Any other questions or comments before we close this discussion? Not hearing any, we'll move into our proposed resolutions. So, first proposed resolution today is number 5. It's to authorize the acquisition of aviation easements for property located near Chautauqua County Airport.
Yeah, this is authorizing us to go out, we do this periodically, so we have the legislators' authorization to go out and negotiate easements with our property owners for obstructions in the flight paths. So if we ended up having something, flagged for us to go out, we have the ability to go out and negotiate with our partners and then bring it back to you guys if we have to do any kind of monetary purchases. But in general, just getting easements so we are able to remove obstructions, whether we do it ourselves or somebody else does it.
Right, so I think you just said it, but this is authorization to negotiate, not to close.
Correct,
Okay,
yes. The closed ones, I believe they all come here anyway, so. yeah.
Got it.
Questions, comments? Not hearing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
1 nay. Resolution is carried. Next proposed resolution number 6 is to amend the 2026 budget for departments of planning and the Jamestown Airport.
Yeah, this resolution is we received the grant from the Department of Planning for our air show, and that's just moving that money from them to us for the air show.
Love air shows.
Questions, comments?
And that's, the air show's in 2027.
2027, yep.
Good. Looking forward to it.
What is our expected date of the terminal repairs to be completed? Do you think it'll be completed by then? marginal?
Should be, yes. We'll have a runway project, and that, completing the runway project is phased to be done by the time the air show hits. For the crosswind runway, they won't be having, our air show won't be on that, but then that should be completed by then too. We're hoping portion of that'll be done January, February, hopefully is our kind of target. So,
It's great to, it's quite a few people come up and attend the air
Yeah.
shows typically, so it's nice to have all those projects wrapped up. They can see
yep,
see it, see the restaurant and, potentially want to, it's just a draw, but.
yeah, it is. The restaurant is booming, by the way.
See the
Great.
gate?
Awesome, yeah.
See the new gate?
That's,
It's the wrong airport.
If they accept.
wrong airport, yeah, that's Dunkirk Airport.
It's in the north.
We could have a
You
picture
can
of
take
it.
them up there. Fly them up there.
Yeah,
Tours.
Maybe we'll need a new gate in Jamestown by
we
then.
already got them. You guys already proved that.
And they don't last forever.
I think they're only 3 years old.
Taken a couple years to design it, so.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Not hearing any, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next proposed resolution number 7 is to Government Reduction Initiative Assistance for Town of Pomfret for sharing and consolidating of services between municipalities.
Good morning, Lauren Sharp, Senior Planner with the Department of Planning and Development.
Good morning, Dan Pecos, Supervisor for the Town of Pomfret. Sorry, my tablet just went to sleep on me. Okay, so our request for funds through the Government Reduction Initiative came out of a request from the Village of Fredonia to the Town of Pomfret to take over their DPW department. That came late last fall, just before our budget process was finalized. And in discussions with the mayor of Fredonia, we talked about the fact that the two municipalities, the town and the village, operate very differently. Our budgets are very different. And I wanted to take a look at what it would take to take over their DPW department. They have a water and a sewer plant. We don't. They have a lot of issues with their water system. They have a street department, parks department. So I wasn't sure if that meant everything, including water and sewer filtration, exactly what they were talking about with DPW. And each time I spoke with them, I sort of got different answers. So I said, we really need to look at this. It's got big budgetary implications for Pomfret. I wanted to make sure that the village didn't see a big savings, but that the Pomfret taxpayers would pick up a big cost. But in our discussions, we talked about other possibilities for shared services, including our courts. Our two justices are the same two justices that the village has. We have a full and a part-time court clerk, and our part-time clerk works the rest of her hours for the Village of Fredonia, so we share all the same personnel. We talked about the possibility of sharing our code enforcement building inspector service, putting that into one office instead of having two individuals do all of that. Building code is building code according to the state. Zoning is a little different. Each zoning is different based on the community, but the building code would be the same, so we thought that was a natural. And the last one that we thought of was dog control services. Everybody is struggling trying to find part-time dog control officers. And if we looked at all of our neighboring communities, maybe we could do something collaboratively. And the reason I thought of that, the town of Pomfret currently operates a shared service for our assessor's office. We went together with three other municipalities, four including Pomfret. We all employed the same assessor. And when I added up what we were all paying her, it was quite a bit of money, but she was not getting health insurance from anybody. So we put that service together in the town of Pomfret's budget. We paid her less than what she was getting, but we gave her health insurance. And we offered better service to the other towns. She was working maybe 1 or a half day a week in some of those towns. What we did is we combined all of the tax information together in the computer and gave our clerks access to that. We forwarded all the phone calls from the other offices to the town of Pomfret. So anytime you call Portland, Pomfret, Dunkirk, Hanover, or Arkwright, the assessor's office, the ladies in Fredonia pick up the phone and say good morning or good afternoon, assessor's office. Everybody thinks they're getting their town's office. They have access to all the information, and if they can't get an answer right away. They get a hold of the assessor wherever she's working that day, and she calls them back. But it's worked very well. So we felt we could replicate that with some of these other services. Town of Pomfret applied for, or is applying for, 2 local government management efficiency grants through the state. There is a 50% match. Those 2 grants total $50,000. So we're applying for the GRI funds for the 50% local share, the local match. We did make a formal presentation to the GRI committee and discussed in depth all of these. Since then, earlier this week, we came and presented to the Public Facilities Committee, and Dunkirk Common Council was here, most of their members. I think they were missing one. And during that presentation, they asked if they could be included for all of the study, including possible consolidation of the municipalities. The county executive came to us after we started studying talking about studying the shared services, and said you should really be looking at consolidating. And Dunkirk actually surprised me, asking if they could be included in all of those talks, and asked me after the meeting if I could come and make a presentation to their common council at a future meeting, which I agreed to. So there is interest to do the study and do it on our own. We have a lot of questions. Dunkirk's a city, Fredonia's a village. They each have union contracts. I mean, there's just a ton of questions about how we would do any of this, the various pieces, including possible consolidation. So we want to study it. As part of that study, one of the questions we had yesterday is what are the deliverables that would come out of the project? We would be looking for an analysis of possible shared savings along with an implementation plan for how to implement those particular pieces. But the other thing I forgot yesterday was that I'm also looking for help with public relations on how to get the message out so that we have the public support if it's going to require a public referendum, like for a dissolution or whatever. So there's a couple of different prongs there. Let's see, am I forgetting anything? I think that's everything.
Question, I have a question, Dane. One thing I would recommend in the study that when they're conducting the study is the scenarios where at least someone doesn't move forward. And in that variables, there'll be several scenarios. You know, if someone doesn't participate, what's it look like still? Because you don't want to have to say, well, Dunkirk doesn't want to come along anymore. But our study was based on Dunkirk being involved. So as long as they still conduct a study with, if someone doesn't move forward after the study.
Yeah, we're thinking along the same lines. I did reach out, that's the one piece I missed. I did reach out to the Center for Governmental Research in Rochester and spoke with them about this process. They do this work. They did this for the village of Forestville and Cherry Creek, I believe, and put a study together for those dissolutions. But they've also done larger projects. This would be obviously a larger project. But I did have that thought because some might be interested in the shared service, but not a full consolidation. So we're going to have to look at all of that.
Sure.
And that's again why I want an outside consultant to do it too, because I don't want it to look like I'm skewing a study for the town of Pomfret. I also don't know all of the factors to consider. I'm asking a lot of questions, but I don't know what I don't know about some of this stuff. And a lot is legal, and how this can be done and what are the steps. So I'm not an attorney. I am an accountant, but not an attorney. So yeah, we have the same thinking.
Good. Other questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. When we offer a grant like this, could Dunkirk apply as well as Pomfret, as well as Fredonia? I mean,
Applying for the
apply
grant
for
through
yeah,
the state,
I
you
mean,
mean?
it's-
Or is this a state grant that you're applying for? to
We're
do
applying
this?
for state grant and then also for the county GRI funding for the local
yeah, for
share.
the county. So I guess, could all 3 municipalities
Apply to the
apply-
county or to the state?
apply to the county? Thus, It would
Well, I
mean-
think they are. It
We
could
applied as the
collaboratively-
lead agency, and then we listed them as partnering
Okay.
agencies.
Well, I
But
just
one
wondered
needs
if
to
are we
take the
giving
lead.
50,000 here, 50,000
Yeah.
here, 50,000,
So
or
this
it's all
is-
the same.
And this is the first consolidated act of a consideration of being consolidated.
And I'm
so-
all for it, I think, to make it more efficient is really a great idea.
Yeah.
I just was curious about that.
I think one has to take the lead because it has to be on that municipality's books, and we have to account for it,
Yeah.
so.
But it's fundamentally a joint
Correct.
municipal benefit, yes.
Okay.
We beat this kind of to death last night, but this is the kind of initiative that the county said that it wants to support across the county. And the thing we kind of went round and round on last night was the Dunkirk, Fredonia, Pomfret, the municipalities' skin in the game. That if municipalities are gonna come to the county and ask for, in this case, $50,000, what's their financial skin in the game? The answer had to do with kind of in-kind contribution time of people in meetings and that kind of thing. And I just asked the question, because this is the first one, at least I'm seeing coming through, and absolutely pursuing productivity is a great thing. But if it's not important enough to the municipalities to put at least some financial skin in the game, then I kind of put up my yellow referee card and go, just a minute, why should then the county be bearing the whole financial cost? I'd like to see you guys serious enough about it, so you're willing to put up at least some. And as a precedent, really, for these things going forward across the county.
Yeah, I understand that. I was thinking a lot about that last evening after the meeting. And I can't speak for all of the municipalities involved. I know a couple
Fair
are
enough.
in tough financial shape. Town of Pomfret, even if we said, okay, we're going to cover 20% of the local share, that's $12,500 to our budget. That's a lot of money for me to come up with in our budget. Our contract with the Village of Fredonia for fire service is actually larger. Our charge to our resident is actually larger than our town tax.
But to be-
So
but
our
to be
our budget
clear-
is very small.
No, no, but to be clear, if, let's say, this project, the municipalities, plural, were gonna come up with the 12,005, I wouldn't expect it to be just Pomfret. I would expect it to be all of you
Right.
together, which, and $12,000 over Fredonia, Dunkirk, Pomfret. Now that,
Well, I was saying 12.5 from 4 different municipalities to
fair
cover
enough.
the 50,000.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
There may be an issue if we do the RFP. The Center for Governmental Research sent me some draft RFPs that I'm going to use to develop an RFP for the service. If, say, the costs come in at 115 or 120, we may have to go back to the municipalities and ask them to pony up some money for it.
And I'll actually counter-argue that myself in the sense that, you know, the initiative is being put forward from the county to say, look, we want to help promote these towns and villages and municipalities to consider consolidating efforts. And so here's a pool of money, and that's how it's been laid out to them. So, you know, and also, it isn't a sense that the municipalities don't have a need, they just don't have the funds to conduct the whole study. And the state sees it as an important thing, and they're offering pretty substantial amount of money too. It's not just our county that they're giving these grants to, it's across the state. So the state's invested into this program as well. And I think it's only right that the counties contribute, because they do have a little extra flexibility in their budgets. If you did not ascertain this extra funding from the county, you might not otherwise conduct this study. So, and that's the initiative. We want you to conduct this study for efficiency for your municipalities, but also for the county residents. So, you know, and I think it's prudent that we are doing it. I understand that it is important that municipalities have some skin in the game, and I think that throughout the process, they will end up having skin in the game, you know, so.
One of the major hurdles we're going to face if we look at consolidations, I'm assuming we're probably going to need to do a property reval in each of those municipalities, because if we start consolidating municipalities, we all have different equalization rates right now. That's going to be a major cost and a major hurdle that we're going to have to address if we get to that point. I'm prepared to dig in and figure out how to get it done, but I identify, even if we look at, if it's Village of Fredonia, Town of Pomfret, we have the same, we're the same assessing unit. But if we start talking about Town of Dunkirk, City of Dunkirk, then we're looking at a major project to do a reval of all
Sure.
of that. We've got almost 7,000 properties in the town of Pomfret.
But here, we're just talking about the first study.
Correct, but
And I don't
my
have
point
any,
is
to
there-
Dan's point, I don't have any problem with the county participating. And as a state taxpayer, I don't have any problem with the state participating in a major way. But what I know is that the people who really know what the opportunities are down at ground level are the people in the municipalities. And if they should have done enough analysis to go, hey, this isn't just a study, but this is something that we really think is going to pay off. And it's the local share, whether it's 12,000 or whatever, that says, yeah, we've looked at this and we really are interested, rather than, hey, the county and the state are giving us some money to do a study. Sure, we'll do a study. You follow? That's the purpose of the skin in the game,
The
is to make sure
people-
your people are really serious about going forward.
When you say the people at the local level, are you talking about on the municipal boards, or are you talking
Well,
about
no,
the
the
employees?
people, the citizens, well, basically that the analytical numbers are there to get people motivated to do it. And you guys know that down at ground level, know that better than anybody right now. And you've mentioned just a bunch of examples.
Correct, but I also know that we have to sell that to the residents, because when you start talking about consolidations, and I've seen it on social media already, everybody started saying, well, what are they gonna call it, Dunkdonia? I mean, all those stupid comments start coming up because everybody's afraid you're gonna lose your identity, and you need to get past that.
Sure.
And that's why we need somebody from the outside to do the study and identify the possibilities, but then also tell us how to get that information out and sell it.
I mean,
Because
it's axiomatic.
I've been around long enough to know,
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
no,
it's
it's
gonna be-
axiomatic that you need to have good data, and then that you need to make sure that the good data gets out to everybody. That's axiomatic. But everybody's gonna have a point of view, and they're entitled to their point of view.
Well, and your point said, I mean, it takes endurance of the officials in place to see something like this through, you don't want to be considering yourself the ex-mayor because it's worn you out, or
Yeah,
after,
I don't want to
it's
be
a
known as Dan
process,
the
you know.
Last, yeah.
Yeah, so it's tough, so, it's gonna take some endurance for yourself, and that's where I think the sale of the skin in the game too is in kind, because it's gonna require a lot of extra effort, it really will.
Almost the easiest part is giving them $50,000.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't mean easiest,
Yeah.
but,
No.
I mean, my thing with studies is you hope that the study accomplishes the goal. I mean, just to fund a study, just
Just
to
to put it on
find
the
out.
shelf, yeah.
I mean, we're hoping that we're finding out to move forward
Mm-hmm.
with a goal. I'm just a technical question, and
Sure.
I'm not trying to cause problems, but this is my third time through this, so it says on my resolution, the city of Dunkirk was included in there. Is
We
that
originally-
changed, or was that there from the beginning?
We originally included them for the dog control officers service because I
Okay, so
believe they were cited
sorta
for not having
brought
somebody.
in- I know the other night it seemed like,
And then they asked, could we be included for
why didn't
everything?
we know about it? And I'm
Yeah.
going, okay,
Yeah.
good enough.
Well, yeah, from the start, if the town of Pomfret was to assume the village's DPW department, I wasn't thinking of taking on the city's DPW at the same time, but if that's something they want to look at, we could certainly look at it. But I was like, wow,
Okay.
it's a little,
So
it's
that
kind
was
of a big bite of
basically
the
in
apple
there
there,
for
but,
dog control. But it does include them in the rest.
but they want to be included in the
Yeah,
rest.
so
I
they're
did-
already in there.
Correct. I did send an email out this past weekend to the mayors and supervisors of all the communities, city and town of Dunkirk, town of Sheridan, town of Arkwright, and village of Fredonia, saying, these are the services we're looking at. Which do you want to be included in? And also, would you like to be included in an overall study for consolidation? So,
Well, when
find
I
out.
was down in Florida 2 weeks ago, somebody asked where I was from. I told them town of Pomfret, and they said, oh, yeah, we know where they.
yeah, we know right where that is, right?
So I don't want to lose that identity.
Alrighty.
Well, hopefully the study will show the savings to the taxpayers over time, which will convince them to get past, what do we call, Fredonia, I don't know, whatever,
Yeah.
we'll get past it.
Parochialism,
And
yeah.
it'll be well
I'm
worth it.
already past it. You got one vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is a piece that I'm hoping comes out, well, I'm sure will come out in the study, is shared services would generate savings. Consolidations or mergers, whatever you want to call it, dissolutions, would generate additional state aid. Because there is an aid piece that would follow that. And that would be above and beyond the savings that we can generate. So I'm hoping that the consultant makes sure that they point that out.
Any other questions or comments? Not hearing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in today to present. Again, do you have it memorized now?
Just about.
Next proposed resolution, number 8, is Government Reduction Initiative Assistance for Clymer Central School District for Clymer Sherman Panama Merger Feasibility Project.
You can start.
Morning.
Good morning. I'm Shelley O'Boyle. I'm the project coordinator for the Clymer Sherman Panama merger study. With me this morning is,
I'm Teresa Guzman, and I'm Sherman School Board President.
And I'm Ed Mulkern, I'm the Clymer School Board President.
unfortunately, illness is going through the Panama Board, so Panama is unable to join us this morning. However, Board President Carrie Muncie would like you to know that Panama is very much in favor of the merger study and very much supports the application to the Government Reduction Initiative. So we're here before you asking for money to help us conduct the three-way merger study. But before I go any further, I would like to just point out that the boards have already moved forward. So when we talk about skin in the game, they have already moved forward, not knowing if they were going to get funding from the county or funding from the New York State Local Efficiency, Government Efficiency Grant. Additionally, I just also want to put forward, because last night I talked about, when we were here last night for the Planning and Development Committee, and even when we met with the GRI Committee, I neglected to even mention that all three boards in their February resolutions committed $40,000 apiece. So we're looking at a collective $120,000. And last night I kept focusing on the LGE 50% match, which is $31,250. So that was an oversight, and I apologize for those of you that were here last evening or were at the GRI committee meeting. The three districts are moving forward and with the merger study because their communities, they feel like they have the support from their communities. Their communities took 2 surveys, one in May of 2025 and one in February, this last February 2026. Supplied the data for you in a bar graph. You can see the evidence that they've used to move forward. That would be the first bar graph that you see. The districts are looking to merge for 3 reasons. Number 1, to provide students with opportunities. That's probably foremost in a school district because we educate students. However, on the other side is the decline in enrollment that we're seeing in our districts. If you look at the second bar graph, you will see that within 5 years, we expect a 62% decrease or decline in enrollment. I'm going to point something out to you that's kind of important right now, because those numbers, you can look at those, but what it doesn't drive home is that some grade levels have 9 or 10 kids in them. It's kind of difficult to educate 9 kids effectively and even economically correctly. If you look at your last chart on that first page, You'll also see that the three districts, along with 425 other districts throughout New York State, are experiencing a gap in their revenues and expenditures. That chart shows you a $2 million expected gap in the next 5 years. And that's not because our districts are not managing their budgets well. They're doing that well. The problem is that all schools in New York State have a tax levy increase, a tax cap increase of 2% restriction. Along with that, health insurance went up 15%. Contractually, our raises are higher than that 2%. So the gap is widening. New York State's answer is to merge. They actually offer merger incentive aid. So these three districts stand to gain $68 million to $71 million over the next 14 years. And the way the state lays that out is that each district would get, the three districts, the merged district, would get $7 million per year for 5 years. And then the rate decreases 4% for the next 9 years until it meets the 71 million. Now, why do I tell you that? Because with the first couple of years, there is an expected increase in costs. We know that transportation will probably be driven up because you're looking at multiple buildings, multiple transports of students. We're also looking at trying to operationally right size. So at first, there may be not very many cuts in teachers, but within the first 5 years, you are going to see some right sizing and shifting. One superintendent decreased from 3, so you have a cost savings there. There are cost savings across departments, cost savings in equipment, cost savings in services. And eventually, as the staff leaves through attrition or leaving for other positions, you start to see that right sizing. I talked to you about the skin in the game. I also want to talk to you about the matching. We also understand that one entity shouldn't be paying the whole ticket of the whole cost, and right now we have that projected at $185,000. We have applied, as I said before, to the New York State Local Government Efficiency Grant. We've applied to the Ralph C. Sheldon and received the $2,500 director. I keep calling it exclusionary grant. It's the discretionary grant. So again, that last night was incorrect. We have also received bullet aid from Assemblyman Molitor. At this time, I'm going to turn it over for any questions.
Questions? Mr. Nelson?
Would the merged district, would it build a new school? Is that the idea, or,
So
and
I'm
then
gonna,
where would it?
yeah, so that is the question that keeps coming up, that we keep hearing in the forums, and that seems to be the question on everybody's mind. And Tom, Mr. Nelson, I'm going to piggyback on.
You're my former boss. You
I
can-
I know,
We
but
love bringing her, you know.
I won't let Dalton call me that, but you can.
I'm going to piggyback that not only with, are we going to build a building, right? But the other is the schools themselves are hubs in the community. And bottom line is what's going to happen to those buildings, because we keep hearing that as well. So part of the study is looking at what are we going to do? Are we going to be building, what is the recommendation? And currently, we believe that we may be able to, for the first couple of years, stay as is, with a few shifts in bringing 7 to 12 students together. And I'm going way around the block, Tom. Eventually, probably with the enrollment declining, yes, there probably will be a new building that will be built, which there is state aid for that as well. And it also bumps up their aid to 98% from the state. at which time we still need to get results from the study. And in the meantime, the piggyback part about what are we doing for the buildings in the communities, as part of the GRI, you'll see that we're asking you to help fund the building repurpose analysis. So we're bringing in another study consultant to come in to determine what the buildings could be used for. If they're vacated, half of the building, a portion of the building, all of the building, what community agencies, what businesses can we attract into those buildings? Because we also know that a lot of the community is concerned that they may lose some economic, they don't want trees growing out of their buildings after years.
So, I mean, last night I was a cause of a bunch of static on this, and now that I hear you guys really do have either 120 or 150 some skin in the game, and Lauren's in charge here, I'm great. Because this is a study and I'm all for it. And the only finger I'd like to put on the scale in terms of the study is if you come back here now for funding at some future date for implementation, I will really want to see the fact that distance learning was truly considered and analyzed in that study.
Fair point. And
Right.
last night we talked more about the distance learning. I think we thought that.
And as to, not being able to educate 9 kids, I'm the product of a 9-kid primary school, or actually smaller.
Yeah, but, and I'm
I
gonna
wouldn't
age
recommend it
myself,
then.
back when we were in school, I hate to say this, but I don't wanna say the expectations, because the expectations were high.
They're going
What
to
I-
say whatever they want on that camera, so just say whatever.
No, yeah, I know. But the expectations were high, but the requirements and the regulations and it's fairly not cost effective to be educated, yes, yeah.
I got
9
you.
students.
The current environment in New York State. Yeah.
That's a better way to put it.
See, in my case,
You should have worded
my
that.
mother ran the school.
Oh,
It wasn't home learning, it was a real school, but
understood. Any other questions?
Yeah, the thing that stuck out to me was the academic gains for the students. We all want to save money. I mean,
Right.
That's a given. I, on the other hand, graduated with 843 other students.
Yes.
And people said, how did you do that? Well, one of the advantages to more numbers was we had electives for English in high school. We had electives for math in high school. We had 7 languages to choose from.
Sure.
Not that I was looking for all these opportunities, but as I look
But
back.
you had those opportunities.
We had those opportunities, and it was good for us.
Right.
And the reason we have schools is to educate, but you want to make it the best event for the kids going to school. And I can't imagine, unlike Fred, we had 32 in all of our elementary school classes, and we had 12 buildings with 6 grade levels of each, but I think it's better, sorry, Fred, for 24 kids in a classroom than 8 kids in a classroom. I think there's a little more, I don't know, I just think the dynamics are better, but what I really appreciated was the academic gains for the kids. There's more possibilities and the expectations.
Yes.
So that's what I heard, so
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Along with cost savings and
Right,
efficiency.
of course we want efficiencies, right? But I'm gonna give you an example that brings home what you're saying. So in our districts, say what you will about which language should be offered, right? Right now, kids can't get it at 6th, 7th, 8th grade. They are unable to get high-level Spanish, where other districts, you go down the road, go to a bigger school district, they're offering those kids have that ability to access that. So,
Yeah.
And we would still, all 3 combined, not be the size of a Jamestown school. We're
Oh,
not,
no.
we're not even close to
No,
that
no,
kind
no,
of, so this
but-
is still small-ish,
Sure, but smallish, 8 in a class, 16 in a class,
Yes.
you just doubled it.
Right.
You know,
More
yeah,
opportunity, certainly
yeah.
more opportunity. And a very good thing about this other survey that we found heartening is that our communities seem to recognize that gains or opportunities for students came out on top, even before their financial considerations. And we're all concerned about our taxes for sure, right? But the fact that they are putting, the communities, all three, are putting academic opportunities for the children ahead, it was very heartening to all of us.
That's ranked the highest.
I went in one day with a little bit of a problem, and I had to say to the superintendent that my kids don't exist because of the schools. The schools exist because of my kids. And I got the response, "You don't need to say that." And I said, well, apparently I felt I did need to say it, and I said it, so.
Thank
yeah,
you.
I appreciate that.
Thank you for recognizing that, because usually when you look at GRI efficiencies, it is usually about the financial, and we're schools, and we put students first, always.
Right.
And so consequently, that's why I added that academic and
Well, we're the big
co-curricular.
bad legislature, so, you know, we do
We're not
have.
all big bad.
Not all big bad.
Just Bob.
You know, and I would just say too that, you know, your projected estimated enrollment is actually not a lot bigger than what the school districts used to be individually. So, you know, that's important. I just wanted to say that a couple things that I would like to input is, I've passed, I'm a retired school board member, and I sat through a lot of budgets, and I've, you know, been faced with some of these very own decisions, and it is a challenge. You know, like Bob said, you know, students are number one, and the attendees, but to do that effectively, you have to work, make sure you're offering what is needed. It's very hard for smaller districts to necessarily offer that. So I think the merger is great in the sense that it will provide and promote more things available for the students. And I think that they'll still feel their community. And in 10 years after, if the merger is successful, that will be the new normal too. It just takes a little time. But one thing I would just like to say is, you know, you alluded that right sizing would happen through nutrition and over time and over a process. And I just reserve that because what happens is something like that really should be done right away too. Because otherwise you don't have those efficiencies right away or to experience either. And at some point, you don't need 8 math teachers. Why struggle
That is-
along with the math? I
that is
understand
correct,
that,
right.
You know, and that's.
Except that, and
I get the union implications, or you don't wanna go forward in a project knowing that there's gonna be cuts because you don't wanna have that as a thing. We're gonna be cutting people, really. But it's realistic too. And so I think just as much of that right sizing could be included in the beginning is very important.
and I didn't mean to misrepresent there either. So the study is also looking at that, looking at number of teachers at each grade level in each subject area, and we'll be recommending like what we would be able to offer. I think one of the recommendations or one of the statements at one of the forums was, okay, we might have 3 math teachers, and 3 math teachers would not need to teach Algebra 1. But now you might be able to offer Calculus 1 and Calculus 2, or you might be able to offer some of the math electives. Not over and extensive. We're just talking about like right sizing so that we have offerings to give students. But your point is well taken. We shouldn't be prolonging 8 teachers forever when you now then dwindle a class size back to 8 or 6 or 10. Like that is not appropriate either. But there is some right sizing that needs to occur to be able to figure out where, how many, and those recommendations will also be coming. So point taken.
Yeah, and that process is very difficult, but, you know, and you'll, in the sense that, you know, if you look at that, it's like, well, what teachers do you save? You know, this teacher's been here a long time, this one. So You know, unfortunately, it'll come down to,
Seniority.
you know, it'll come down to looking at, you know, putting them all in a pool, but also seeing the longevity and who has the most time, and that's really what it'll come down to. So it's, you know, the process kind of plays itself out,
That's
so.
what it'll come down to first.
Yeah.
Who's been there the longest?
It really has been, yeah, and, so, not necessarily picking
And,
someone.
and I don't, you know, this is just an option that we would have, and I'm not, without discussing this, and, first of all, I'm not on the new merged school board, so this would be a new merged school board decision, but we have in the past at Clymer offered some incentives for teachers with a certain amount of time and a certain amount of seniority or service to retire and retain some benefits and some other things to make it attractive. So that, with the additional aid that we're gonna get from the state, merger aid, that would allow us to do, you know, to put together a package like that, which would immediately, you know, relieve some of that pressure.
Retirement is a great way to, but we're not here to.
Yeah.
Oh, no, no,
Okay, no. Yeah,
We're like, come
but
on.
believe, yeah,
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
No, we-
yeah, in conversations, that, you know, these are the things that the merger study's gonna bring to light for us, and also things that we've been talking about. But we all three districts are committed to preserving their staff as best as possible. Sure. You know, they've done a great job. We've got great staff.
great.
And there's a point we made last night, this is, I think, the first school consolidation initiative in at least some time that the county is really dialing into. And so, to the extent that this is a really good study, it sets an example for the rest of the county, if not other counties too.
So do a good study.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm all for it.
Great. Any other questions or comments?
Nope.
Thank you for coming in today and
Thank you.
presenting. So,
Thank you.
all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? It is carried.
Super,
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah, good job.
thank you.
Great, thanks for
You're
coming
good,
in.
yeah.
And I really did go to school with my.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Good. And I went to a fancy boarding school, so. And I ran a school in Panama. Oh, shit.
He went to a getaway or something.
I lived way the hell and gone out in the mountains of Venezuela.
Next proposed resolution today
we
is
set up a little two-room
number 9. It's
schoolhouse.
to amend the 2026 budget
Grades
for
1
buildings
through
and grounds.
3 in one classroom.
Good morning, everybody.
6 in
Tim
the
Carr, Director of Public Facilities. The resolution before you is for the project at the HRC building
No, no, I
that
just-
we went
I
out
just-
to start last year with a budgeted amount of $500,000, and we're just looking to roll that money over that's remaining to finish that project this year because of the late start they got and the weather, so we had to shut that down and start it back up here. And I think they're scheduled to start back up next week with the weather and see what that does.
Questions, comments?
So this money was saved in '25 and is just coming back to us in
Yeah, we'll just have to
26.
move it back into 26 to finish the project.
Any other questions or comments? Not hearing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Next proposed resolution number 10 is authorized DEC open space grant application and the setting aside for funds for the acquisition and preservation of land in Cassadaga, New York.
Good morning, Jamie Reynolds, Department of Public Facilities, Parks and Engineering. This resolution is just what it says. It's authorizing the county to apply for open space grant funding that would be administered by the state DEC for some property in Cassadaga, more specifically in the town of Arkwright.
Okay. Questions, comments?
So the $1 million is for all sorts of projects, and this 8 or 9 acre portion would use some fraction of that $1 million?
Correct.
Okay. I thought that was a little pricey for 8 acres.
Other questions or comments? Not hearing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? It is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next proposed resolution, number 11, is the cancellation of uncollected tax liens.
Good morning. I'm Todd Button, First Deputy Director of Finance and Treasury, and I've been asked to fill in for Kim and Becky, who are unavailable today. The first resolution before you is to authorize the cancellation of uncollectible tax liens. In an ongoing project in the Property Tax Department, we have been steadily working through problem parcels, delinquent parcels, to get them resolved. And as part of that effort, these two parcels have come to our attention in the town of Hanover. They are essentially vacant lots that were purchased a few years ago by the Seneca Nation under the auspices of Seneca Gaming. And they were purchased after the taxable status date, so a subsequent tax bill was generated and never resolved as not to be paid. So we're asking to now write those off, and the appropriate chargebacks to the appropriate municipalities will be made.
Never resolved to be paid? Is that a way of saying they stiffed you, or what happened?
Now, the Seneca Nation is exempt, okay? And unfortunately, when the real estate was transferred, it was too late to mark the property as non-taxable, and when the tax bill went out, apparently nobody protested the fact that I never should have got that bill. This should have been resolved 7 or 8 years ago.
All right, so it was a accounts receivable that really never should have been there.
That's right.
Okay.
Is it on reservation land?
No. Not to my knowledge. I don't believe Hanover has any
No, yeah, I was just thinking,
reservation
I don't-
property, but
doesn't-
the nation owns it.
Okay.
Again, I believe the nation owns it under auspices of their gaming corporation.
Have they improved it? I don't, I'm not familiar with the parcel.
No, the note here is that they are both still coded as commercial vacant lands.
Okay. So it's vacant, at
Yeah.
least they're not sitting on a.
No buildings.
So when the nation, just for my information, when the nation buys property off the reservation, that property then comes off the tax rolls?
Yes, that would be my understanding, yes.
Really?
That's why I wondered if it was in.
Really?
Really.
Says who?
Says probably the treaty between the Seneca Nation and the federal government and the state of New York and
Well, that was the Treaty of Big Tree,
whatever makes them
and I doubt the Treaty of Big Tree said any such thing.
tax exempt as an indigenous nation. I'm not an authority on it. I just know that they are not going to pay these bills.
Well, that's where the question was it just a bad accounts receivable thing? So, yeah.
It was 1 year of taxes that were charged, and subsequently they have not been charged. But they've been sitting out on our books for a number of years, and we need to make them go away.
All right, well, no, fine, we'll go dig into this some other place to educate ourselves.
And Todd, these, what you're showing here to the tax liabilities, is that, what the original amount was, or does this show?
No, the liability
accruals?
is the original tax. If you look in the comments there,
Yeah.
the reason, the original amount of the tax bill is listed, but then subsequently they have doubled because of accrued interest and penalties
Sure.
and what have you.
So it's not as bad as it looks.
No,
either.
we're only actually writing off the original $18,000 per parcel. And the
Minus-
county will not be eating all of that. We will only be eating what our share was on the original bill. The town will be charged their portion. I'm sure there may even be school tax involved
Sure.
here. I don't know. The school will be getting their charge back. There'll be no village here because they're not in a village.
Okay,
Plus it ends it going forward.
Yeah.
sure, no, and that's the.
Like I
that's
say,
the-
this was
that's the
a,
whole thing,
this
so.
was a 1 year bill, and they have since been they've been off the rolls since.
No, that's great. Otherwise, this would never go away if we didn't take this action
No, it'll
today.
sit there. I mean, ideally, this should have been dealt with
Yep.
5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and it was not, so.
Great.
We are making good progress in cleaning up some of these issues.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Next proposed resolution is quitclaims deeds.
Okay, this resolution is a authorization to do deed transfers on the last of 2 properties that were in our 2025 foreclosure auction. However, I need to inform you that we need an amendment to this resolution to strike the second property on the list. I did present this to Admin Services on Tuesday, was it, Monday?
The copy we have this morning is amended.
It is amended, okay. The reason that second property was being stricken is because at some point between the original search of the property and the ultimate foreclosure and tax sale, the owner of record passed away, and the subsequent heir to the property was never served with the notice of delinquency and has declined to sign a release for the property. So we have already refunded the purchaser their down payment on this so that they can move on with their attempt to buy a home. So I anticipate that this will probably get resolved in the next foreclosure auction this year or next year if the taxes are not paid by the new owner.
So we're looking at the first one. Any comments on the first one?
The note I have here from the property tax office was that this purchase agreement was an auction property, and it should have been on the original pre-file that we had back in October, November. It was just overlooked, so.
Did he buy it back? That's what it shows.
Yes.
Okay.
So in theory, if I understand that correctly from talking to Kim in the past, he gets the overage back of anything that's over the taxes as well, though?
I'm going to withhold judgment on that.
Okay.
And that may very well be the case. I don't know if there is an exception being the original. As he was the foreclosed owner and the purchaser, he had to, being it went through the bidding process, he would have had to have bid at least the amount that was outstanding on the property.
Right.
So I take it by the fact that he's paying almost double that he had some competition for whatever this property was. Whether he will ultimately be able to go before the judge and request a refund on the alleged gain, I don't know that.
Okay.
I don't know if there are any exceptions for that in the law. We're still working through this whole forfeiture of gain issues.
But the good news is,
We made
we'll
money.
get at least the taxes over.
At least the county is made whole on the original taxes, the subsequent penalties, and the subsequent interest accrued going up to that point, so.
Fair enough.
Either way, it's a good deal for us.
Yep.
The only downside to this whole forfeiture of gains is that the county still gets stuck when we have a loss on a property. So we don't have any mitigating offsets to that by not being able to do this, but that's another discussion.
Any other questions or comments? Not hearing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? It is carried. And next proposed resolution,
You want to skip one and I'll?
yes, we
Take the
will.
next
So we're gonna skip one and go to 14. And that's the authorized transfer to tax foreclosure property of the city of Jamestown.
Okay, this resolution is I would consider it to be a success story, again, for the property tax department and as well as the city of Jamestown. We have here a list of 12 parcels within the city that I'm not exactly sure where they're at, but they are down near the Riverwalk area, and the city has an interest in acquiring these properties, which they have already paid us for all the taxes due on these. This was part of our original foreclosure process for 25. The owner of record went before the judge and got excused from the foreclosure, but we subsequently won on appeal. So we were able to proceed with the foreclosure. The city wants to go into these parcels, as there are a number of them have homeless encampments on them down near the Riverwalk. They're gonna clean all that out, probably demolish a couple of buildings that are in there, and proceed with some development improvement. And because they're going to do that, they have paid the county for all taxes and penalties owed on that, so.
So this is a question perhaps more to Pierre. It's in the first paragraph, and I didn't realize it. So if the legislature in some past resolution said that if some municipality wants to come step into this bidding process, the municipality gets to the front of the line and can do it at the taxes owed, even though the municipality might have been outbid by a private investor. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
How's that fair?
It's fair to the municipality,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Government goes first, private sector goes second.
And the county is reimbursed for all of their back taxes and interest and penalties. So the county comes out whole.
Got it?
And if these properties went through auction and were sold at a loss, the county would take a loss on them.
Sure.
So, is it fair?
I would also point out in that regard that these situations are typically involve parcels that are either derelict buildings, which probably need to be demolished, or substandard buildings which are being inhabited and for the purposes of improvement in the neighborhood and sightliness, probably should be torn down and cleared out. Or if you look at this list, there's probably, out of the 12, I'm gonna say at least 8 of them are probably vacant lots of some size, which is where the city is experiencing these homeless encampments, and they want to clear these people out. We've had a long history in the past of letting these type of properties go through the auction process. The towns, the villages, the cities are not interested in them. They subsequently get purchased up by a new owner who turns out to be another slumlord who doesn't want to do anything with it, and the cycle continues. These same properties would get auctioned off about every 3 years because the landlord or the owner would not pay the taxes, and we're back where we were, which is why Jamestown is currently sitting on a list of 50 to 100 lots with houses that need to be torn down.
I'm all for this. First of all, I'm all for this project, and the rules were set by the legislature in terms of the bidding process, so that's not an issue here. So, I'm all for it. I'll talk to Pierre about how those rules got set, but that's something else again.
Well, and I think that, those individual townships, I think they would be able to look at those individual situations and say, look, this is a piece of property that doesn't have a lot of outside interest in sense, but the city is willing and wanting to do something with it. But if it was a different situation where the city says, look, we don't want anything to do with it, but it's a sought after property or parcel and building or whatever, someone's gonna buy that's gonna do something with it. And so not that that's always the case, but,
Most of the properties that the municipalities are looking at are, pardon me, but they're problem properties.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we still have an ongoing list of problem properties. We are gradually working through them. We recently resolved a couple of those issues with the city of Dunkirk that had been on our hold list for quite a while. They have since acquired them because they want to do various development with them. And, we have a small list of some other opportunities that we'd really like to deal with as well, just to make some problems go away.
well, in the sense that all we're trying to do is, stop the bleeding, and we are gradually,
Yeah.
so.
My favorite phrase, stop the bleeding.
We've paid for these studies with just what we're starting to save in the last few resolutions, so.
Well, maybe we add potentially these properties for the development of the Riverwalk could be a good thing for the city.
Yep.
But again, that's issue in this kind of thing is our legislature voted to do it this way.
Yeah.
In terms of this project, we gotta live within what we voted for, so it's a good project, let's go with it.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, one of the things to add to that is towns and villages are using their own funding. They're more apt to act and get something done. If you go in and somebody, and Todd could tell you, we've seen this in the county for a long time, they come in to buy the property and they do nothing. It sits there and it's a derelict property yet again. So, you know, the reason we are looking at towns and villages, that when they're ready, it's more of a multi-step process. They're gonna make sure that they have the funding to move on a property rather than buy it and languish like another landlord. So it's more apt, we favor the towns and villages and cities, they're more apt to act on it, and something is gonna happen rather than, you know, somebody's gonna go in and buy it at a cut rate, and it just languishes.
Right, and do nothing again.
Yeah, so we're just perpetuating a problem, whereas the towns and villages, rarely is it they don't do something.
And this policy has been in effect for a long time. Every time we go through a foreclosure cycle, where the municipalities can look over the list, and if they have expressed an interest in some of these problem sites, that's fine. However, the county is now taking a more robust approach on this, that if your town or your city or your village expresses an interest in one of these parcels, then pony up today and settle it today. We are not going to be the banker and sit on these properties. We're not going to be the real estate agent for the entire county and stick them in our vault for some other date. In the meantime, we're continuing to accrue taxes that will never be paid or not paid in full. So we're all for, you know, getting taxes paid timely and churning these properties into a useful purpose. And that's really the point of getting this done.
The ask from the municipalities, the easy part, the action is what
Exactly.
we're looking for now.
That's right.
We have a great example across the street from this building, when a restaurant burned down, and the village stepped up and cleaned up the property, restored the property. They acquired it through the tax foreclosure process that we're questioning here. And now we have a brand-new Tim Hortons restaurant sitting on that property.
That's correct.
So the process can be very effective.
Yes. And to follow up on that, not to belabor this point, but another example of this which sort of illustrates the back end of this side is what's currently going on in the old Silver Creek school site. The county sat on those unpaid taxes for 25 years or more, while we hoped something would drop out of the sky and that project get developed. And that went through 3 or 4 iterations of, we'd like to do this, we'd like to do this, we can't do it. And now it's finally being done. But we can't have these issues languish for 25, 30 years. You know, we spot a problem, identify the problem, resolve the problem. So we don't have eyesores.
And dangers, you know. Questions, comments, any more? Not hearing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Thank you. We're gonna bounce back to number 13, which is to amend the 2020 budget for the year-end reconciliations assigned council department.
Good morning, Sam Zaffoto, Deputy Director of Finance. This resolution is one of the final year-end reconciliation resolutions. This is for the sub-department under Unified Courts, which is for the assigned counsel. This is our vouchers for both criminal and family court that essentially have a conflict with the public defender's office. New York State raised the rate that we pay these attorneys essentially April 1st of 2023 to $158 an hour. It was a substantial increase. So over the last 2 years, we've been attempting to get a new baseline and a budget along with a reimbursement factor. So in 2024, we budgeted 1.4 million, came in significantly under budget. We reduced the budget in 25 based on that, and now that's necessitating this use of fund balance. The good news is I do think we have a much better number in 26 with 2 years worth of data. We have over a $1.2 million budget for this. So this is essentially a budget miss in 2025 as we were getting new data at the new rate that we are essentially paying.
Questions, comments? I'm sure the data is a hard thing to calculate because also, not only you don't have a baseline cost, but you don't know what is going to get assigned to this either.
Yep, and these vouchers they can be older. This is a spot where it's basically at the end of the case, so it's not uncommon for us still to see the older rates up because it's 2.5, 3 years worth of work that's coming to us. So that's just been the harder piece, but now we're basically seeing everything at the newer rates, so basically we can kind of run some with better numbers at this point.
Good. Questions, comments? Not hearing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Thank you. The next proposed resolution, number 15, is authorized acceptance in New York State Office of Indigent Legal Services Upstate Model Family Representation Office Grant for the period of January 1st, 2026 to December 31st, 2028.
Wait,
State your name.
Candace Peterson, Grant Coordinator for the Public Defender's Office.
Ned Barone, Public Defender. Good morning, Chairman Pavlock and other members.
Morning.
Derek Gregory, Assistant Public Defender.
What do we have in front of us this morning?
We appeared in front of Public Safety Committee last night, presented our resolution for authorization to accept a new Family Defense Fund grant that we were fortunate enough to receive through Indigent Legal Services. This particular grant we applied for last year, and just with, I want to make sure that our grant team is recognized in the Public Defender Office, which consists of Mr. Gregory, Ms. Peterson, Heather Belly as well. And they spent a lot of time on this particular grant application, and it was somewhat unique. Just very quickly, the background on this particular fund or this particular grant is exclusive to family court. And for those of you that might be new to audit and control or public safety, we have two divisions in the Public Defender's Office, one being the criminal division and one being the family court division. They can't intermingle, they can't commingle. I supervise both departments, but no one in criminal division can have contact with family court division. You can't interchange the attorneys back and forth, or support staff is prohibited. So any monies that might be awarded to our criminal division through ILS over the years, any grants, stay exclusively with criminal division. We can't use those for family court division for whatever reason, and vice versa. Although we've never had the issue or problem of having to try and spend family court grants with criminal because we've never had them. ILS for the first time last year established grants for the family court divisions throughout New York State. It was more of a pilot type of approach, I suppose. And we did receive last year $750,000 grant from ILS, broken down to $250,000 per year over a 3-year period. That continues. That's not changing. That's in existence. We completed the first year last year and submitted itemized vouchers for that particular grant. And we received funding from ILS into the county. That particular fund is current, the grant, as is every one of our criminal division grants. And Candace is responsible for the submission of all the different vouchers on a quarterly basis. And then we receive the funds from ILS. And I think it's important to note, those grants, whichever ones they are completely current, always have been the last couple of years. And so that would continue and continue separate. This particular grant is what we were awarded. Chautauqua County, one of the few counties, was awarded $3 million over a period of $1 million per year. I was notified, and I apologize, the beginning of this year. It was the first week of January, I believe. And I notified Chairman Shagnon that we had received, we were lucky enough and fortunate enough to receive the grant. And we've already submitted and worked with ILS, put together a proposed budget for our family court division and what to do with the $3 million over a 3-year period. So our proposed budget is itemized out over those 3 years. And it's in the resolution, but you can see how much is set aside for employees, full-time employees, and for the other expenses that we're using the money for. I think most notably, and what's again important to note, is we've had really no additional funding to our family court division over the last several years. When we've put together our local budget, it's been somewhat difficult, even though our caseloads have increased, and I believe from last year they increased 21%. That's significant. When you're dealing with 2,500 cases per year, an increase of 21% can be significant. And I think what's most important, and ILS has indicated this, that this particular grant is to once again supplement the effective representation of the client base in the family court division. And it's, as you may know, we deal with several different issues in family court. Custody, visitation, child neglect cases, support cases, and family offense cases. And we've been stressed, we've been strained, our staff. We've been working on bare bones, but local budget, we haven't been able to. We did make application a couple of years ago for an additional attorney. And because of some budget concerns throughout the county, and it was understandable, we couldn't put through on it. So this was the other option, and it's again, I think it's a windfall for the county because it allows us to get this funding from a different source other than the taxpayers of the county. It will help with everything. So it's a tremendous boost, and we believe that we're going to put in 3 or 4 new assistant PDs over the next year or two, as well as support staff that's instrumental. And the support staff can typically, in our practice, make or break an office because the support staff deals with the bulk of the clientele. So given the fact that We're remodeling the family court division up on the hill, as you're probably all aware of, due to some structural issues that occurred at the building. This is going to help tremendously. So we're looking for authorization to accept that grant and continue to improve our services.
Do you think this will help our unassigned council portion? Having the ability to maybe have less conflict within the office?
Yeah, that's a good question, and actually, I discussed that with Chairman Shagnon once we received this, and I think that's was the chairman's concern too, hoping that maybe it will. And as I indicated, it's difficult to say, but certainly it may very well help. And part of the reason is what ILS is looking for in implementation of these funds is for early intervention in the representation. And that can avoid potentially some of those conflicts. In other words, rather than wait for a neglect petition to be filed against a parent and then walking in and they're in the system, in the court system. What they want us to do, and one of the things we would be doing, is creating new positions that go out into the community to work effectively with local agencies, get notice of these situations early on before CPS may become involved or before DSS. But we'd be working with those agencies, and if we're able to do that, then they don't see the inside of a courtroom. Things are resolved between us, the agency, and the parent. And that way, there's no cost for assigned counsel in family court. So yeah, it could help tremendously. It may very well. I think, at least from what Erie County tells me, they've had this funding and this program for the last 2 years now, and they're doing a tremendous job. They really have utilized this whole program how it was intended by ILS when they established it. So if that's any indication of how it may work here, we're hoping it runs along the same path.
Thank you.
Question.
Questions, yeah.
So this is a 3-year grant, $3 million, roughly $1 million a year. Great, it's a grant.
Yes.
But if at the end of the grant period, there's no more grant here, are we able to throttle back to where we were ex ante?
Yes, 100%. Yes.
Because we're adding people here, which means we're gonna have to turn around and let those people go.
Yes, that's correct.
And we're all kosher with that.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, you might want to discuss that if you'd like with myself, but that was one of the concerns by the county when we started, before we started and early on with the grants with the criminal division with ILS. And that was raised by, for example, I remember specifically with Chairman Shagnon and with County Executive's Office early on, that was raised because their concern was just what you indicated. And there is no commitment to continue the positions created by the grants. None at all.
Good.
I can speak personally. My position is 100% funded by the Huron Herring Grant, and it was made entirely clear to me what that entailed. And my coworkers who also have positions that are grant funded, I believe we are all aware that, the positions are dependent upon the continuation of grant funding. So I think the department has done a good job in making
Good.
that.
I mean, that is great because so often it seems somebody in the state gets a camel's nose in under the tent, we get comfortable with doing something, and then we get the whole camel.
Yeah, exactly. So, and as Candace indicated, that's something we talk about. For example, I interviewed, because of this, in anticipation of this, I interviewed an experienced attorney with almost 40 years yesterday, just as an example, and who's interested in a position in the family court division as an assistant public defender. And I indicated that, look, the funding we're anticipating is a state grant. It's granted for 3 years, but there's no guarantees that money's going to be there. And who knows? I mean, if something happens with the funding, you just don't know. And so that's something we strive to explain to every potential candidate that comes in for one of these positions. The other thing I just might add, if I may, is that one of the encouraging signs, and Candace and Mr. Gregory can both talk about this, but one of the encouraging signs is we're going on now with the ILS grants that they obtain through the state, and it's increased every year from the state. The monies they're given, and then they disperse to each county, each indigent provider, how much money they'll continue to get or are going to get. So we've continued with our funding for 11 years now, 10 years?
I've only been here 3, so.
Yeah, well, I'm
before
sorry.
my time,
Yeah,
but yes.
it's been continuous, and it's encouraging. And I think more importantly, if the past is any indicator of what our future holds with this grant, these grants, is pretty promising. And I think that, if I may, getting to your concerns with a lot of this, right now, our funding, the public defenders, is approximately, I mean, we're looking at 75% or so of our budget coming through the state. That's where the money's coming from. And my opinion, for whatever it's worth, and I've said this early on, and I think you see it every year, it's becoming like other public defenders' offices throughout the country. I think at some point, it's going to be a state-run agency, indigent providers, to relieve the county of that expense and cost and responsibility. And right now, we've got ILS regional offices established throughout the state that, for lack of a better term, keep a close eye on us and help us out with all kinds of support, experience, training, everything you can think of. The eligibility, for example, they provide us with their pamphlets, step by step, how to proceed, how to determine, all that information with our investigators. Everything is done through ILS. And if we don't implement the monies, if I don't do it the right way with our department, ILS steps in and says, hold on, because it's their interest. It's their, I mean, they're a major stakeholder in this, along with the county. And all I can say is, if you look at past practice and what we've accomplished in the PD office, I think that the future is extremely bright for the grants to continue. That's not, I mean, it's just what's developed, but it's, we're very excited, we're encouraged, and I think with the Family Defense Fund, or giving the Family Division the opportunity to really, really make a dent and to make some headway, this is going to go a long way. It's a huge, huge improvement.
Other questions or comments? Well, thank you for the brief comments and.
Yeah,
other
I just,
comments, so thank you.
I never keep it brief,
Oh,
but
no.
yeah, thank you, I apologize.
Well,
You
Very
answered all our
important
questions
topic, so
before I could
thank you.
even ask
Well,
them,
yeah,
so.
I get a little excited, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, so thank you. It's great to hear the rhetoric, and we hope that if this is adopted next week, that it will, provide those, fill those gaps that are necessary. So thank you for the work in writing this grant and ascertaining it. That's a lot of work to do, and so thank you. And, part of the processes over the years is the importance of a grant writer to obtain these, to be able to help the department, so thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? It is carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
At this time, I'd like to just take a brief break for a few minutes. We can reconvene in 10 minutes, so then get up and discussion. Good idea.
I really should escape, I got another meeting to go to. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I really need to
If everyone can start working their way back to their seats, we'll reconvene and get into our next resolutions. The next proposed resolution today is 16, which is to authorize agreement with North Lake Fire District to purchase 2 cardiac monitors.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Timothy Carlson. I'm the Chief Paramedic for Chautauqua County EMS. So, with our expansion of the climber car, Medic 75, we needed to purchase another cardiac monitor. And I obtained a quote for a cardiac monitor, and it was roughly $55,000. At the same time, with the merger of the 3 fire districts up here into one, North Lake, they had 2 cardiac monitors because they had recently purchased newer models. And they had these 2 other models that were the ones that we were looking, similar to the one we were looking to purchase. Lightly used, and they would like $20,000 for the both of them. So we thought that was a excellent idea, because we'd get the one monitor we need and then a spare.
For half the price.
Correct.
Or less.
Yeah, yeah. And I was channeling my inner Swedish heritage of being cheap.
No, it's sounds good. As you know, as long as they're gonna fit the bill and they are gonna work. So great collaboration to be able to not let them sit on a shelf somewhere and also help out both agencies. Any other questions, comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Next, proposed resolution 17 is authorized agreement with Village of Lakewood to lease space for fly car M73 and a paramedic.
So this is, just as you read, an agreement for formalizing our use of space at the Lakewood Fire Department. Historically, we have not had any formal agreements with anywhere that we have been stationed in the past, and that's been changing. We wanted to, what really prompted this was trying to formalize the agreements and then, addressing issues such as insurance if something should happen, because we never had that in place. So back and forth about a monetary number associated with that, with the associated increase in utilities and wear and tear on their facilities, like the garage door going up and down, and us, using paper products there, and all of the above. We came up with $3,000 annually to be paid to them. They also were interested in some back payment from the years that we were there. And the settlement for that, the agreement, was for $10,500. Now, that money would come from, it would be credited to them from what they would pay to us from our paramedic intercept agreement. So once that money, that dollar amount, the $10,500 would be reached, we would then start receiving payments again from the Village of Lakewood for the associated paramedic intercept services.
Does that
Questions?
10,500 include this year's 3,000 or?
It
no?
does not.
Okay.
Questions, comments? My question would be, the fly car and the coverage for that area, is that there for a specific, what specific reason? Is it helping Lakewood out? Is it just helping the whole general area out?
It's the whole
specifically?
region. If you look at where we have the cars staffed, it's kind of like, with the sheriff's office patrol, there's the zones. And we have vehicles in each battalion, because there's 4 battalions in the county. And then we're having the expansion of the climber car, because that is distance-wise, space we needed to cover. What they've been established for in the past was based on need and volume. So the south end of the county has 2 vehicles that are kind of closer because the call volume is associated with the south end of the county because the southern basin of the lake really houses the majority of the population in our county. So that has an associated increase in need and call volume. So that's kind of the way that started there. Medic 73 in the past, before that was a staffed asset, was sometimes filled by me backfilling a unit here in Mayville when I was the only senior paramedic for the system. That was sometimes between Stowe and then sometimes in Asheville at their Station 2. Where we are today is not where we started. If you guys remember where the vehicles were when we initially started, Medic 71 was at the Arkwright Town Hall. Now it's at Sheridan Fire Station. Medic 74, which was what I was in when I was initially hired in 2017, was stationed sometimes at Gary Fire Department, sometimes I'd be at Stockton, sometimes I'd float to Frewsburg. And then it went to Falconer, and then now it's at Station 2 of Fluvanna's on Airport Hill. And pretty much the only permanent fixture has been the office right here at 2 Academy Street. So it's changed, and you know, we've never really had permanent homes at the beginning, as you just heard. You know, we kind of moved around, but this is where we've kind of been for quite a while. Lakewood's actually, aside from the office, the longest station that we've had right now.
I just asked because, you know, in the sense that we're providing the service, and sometimes we're in an area because we need to cover that area. And so to incur additional expense because we're actually just covering doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because you know, it's kind of like double charging those those people that are already paying taxes in that fire district that the company's collecting the money for, right? And so why would all county residents have to be able to consume that? Now, if we're in a position just because of it's a convenient place to do business, and now that municipality's incurring some expenses because we're doing that, it makes sense to cover those expenses for them, as long as we're not there as a result of that agency, that municipality not being able to cover what it really should be, you know, so.
Historically, what has happened is it's basically been, you know, well, we have space, and this, we need to be in this generalized area, right?
Yeah.
So that's how that came to be.
So, you know, and if we're just, you know, covering our bills and this is a great place, you know, I just want to, you know, everyone's in this together as well, as to cover that area, and to, you know, the county certainly has done its due diligence in sense of providing the program at no cost. You know, we don't want to see cost as a deterrent to be able to provide those services, and we've done that because we've continued to build the program, even though it's was costly to do that, and you know, it takes partners to be able to assume that as well, and they have up to this point, which has been great. But you know, I don't want to see it being a precedent setting either. We're all of a sudden, instead of being able to be providing with these places and taking on some of the responsibilities as we need, but now all of a sudden we have 4 or 5 or 6 other contracts with other municipalities because this one is a precedent-setting one. And now, instead of our cost of being homed at some of these places is very minimal, to that being to, you know, if we had to pay back everybody else, and now you're paying back $80,000 because this person wanted it because you paid that one, you know. So it just is. I just have a few reserves that way, and you know, as long as it's not too much of a precedent setting.
Yeah, I think, you know, as we look forward with our system, I think we all know that the need will continue to grow, and our services will have to grow and change to accommodate that need. We're going to have more areas that we occupy, and I think one of the benefits of our system has been the fact that we've been integrated in with these stations, and we're a part of these systems that we're working in. You know, I know some counties that have started EMS programs have spent millions in facilities before they've even hired anybody. And, you know, it's nice to be able to spend that money on staff and equipment rather than buildings and facilities that really don't help the public. So I think we've drawn out the I don't know how to say it, the niceness and the warm welcome as long as we can on a good handshake. The need is there that we have something formalized. That's really what's caused all of this to happen.
No, understood.
And I think, you know, if we continue down this path, it's a lot less costly and more cost-effective to do it this way, rather than making our own facilities, right? Or having an entire facility to ourselves.
Does response time, does that factor, that should, I would imagine, factor into where the flight car is located? And Lakewood
Yes.
seems like a good.
The nice thing about where 74 and 73 are respectively in the south end of the county especially is, you know, you can get to both areas. If one's on a call, the other one can cross over quickly, across 86 and down the other side of the lake, or even through Jamestown. You know, with the climber car consideration, being out there will decrease response times to that area drastically. So it is part of it. It is not the sole metric, you know, because a lot of times if we're looking for places that would be the best geographical location, there's nothing there or there's no room for us. So it's kind of, you know, the best of what we can get.
Other questions, comments?
For the credit that we're gonna give them, are they caught up on their billing for the
Yes.
services, or is it?
Yeah,
I know
Lakewood
there's-
always has been very good about that.
Okay.
Just so you know, the numbers that were initially floated were much, 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 much larger. So we were able to bring this to a more realistic agreement that they were very nice to deal with. I don't want to throw any shade at the friends of ours in the village of Lakewood. They've been great people. But at the beginning, I'm glad we could work together.
Almost made you look for the new place.
Yeah, right. It's like, whoa.
No, and it's you know, thank you for the work in the program and the diligence behind it. I know that it's taken a lot for you to even just to get in front of us with this today, so thank you for the work, so.
No problem. It's, you know, because of a lot of work of our providers and the people that make up the system. It's not because of me.
Any other questions before we vote? Not hearing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? It is carried.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Next proposed resolution today is authorized execution in New York State Office of Homeland Security Emergency Services IP Network Readiness Grant Program for the fiscal year 2024 to 2026.
Good morning, Riley Anlow, Fiscal Supervisor. This resolution in front of you is to authorize execution of the SENet grant. It is a grant that we received for $689,655 for the performance period of January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2030. This basically allows us to get ready to connect to the state's network for the public safety answering point. SENet is what the state currently uses, and Corey Leymeister, who is our communications expert, he said that likely there's going to be a state mandate coming down for us to connect to the SENet. So this grant basically is helping us prepare for that state mandate. We are requesting to increase appropriations in the equipment of $50,000 and the revenue account of other public safety New York State aid of $50,000 as well. There's no local share included in this, and a budget amendment is needed as we did not include this in the 2026 budget.
And if anyone's looking at the extra 9 in there, it's a mistake and has been considered a typo.
Oh, yes, I apologize.
Yeah.
It does need amended. The total under the revenue account has 950,000. It should only be 50,000.
The typo was corrected in public
Yes.
safety committee.
Questions, comments regarding the resolution? Sounds like you're being proactive, so good. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Next proposed resolution 19 is authorized execution in the New York State Office of Homeland Security funding grant operation Stone Garden for the fiscal year 2025.
Okay, this is an agreement with New York State Office of Homeland Security to secure funding for the grant of Operation Stone Garden fiscal year 2025. This grant is for $69,097.58. There are no local funds included, needed. And the contract period is September 1st, 2025 through August 31st, 2028. This is included in our 2026 budget, as this is a grant that we typically receive each year. This grant covers overtime costs and fringe costs for border and waterway patrol on Lake Erie it's usually during the summer and fall months. And it also covers fuel for the vessels that are used for these patrols.
Has this grant funding, obviously I recall the grant, but I don't recall the exact amounts. Has the amounts stayed flat, or have they increased over years, or?
Actually, this is a decrease from previous years. I don't really know how they determine what the funding is. It's actually a federal grant that is funneled through the state, and the state manages the grant and funnels it to us. I think overall the grants have been steady, but we contract also with the DEC and New York State Police and the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office all receive the grant as one, and the budget is determined for each of those entities. And ours has gone down. Last year, I believe it was 95,000. This year, it's only 69,000.
That's a substantial decrease. And, I just was curious if that's a trend or a one-off, or how that's determined, because expenses aren't decreasing. So at the end of the day, are we still sending the same assets, and is it now becoming more of a local share cost, or are we decreasing our coverage?
I'm not 100% sure if we're decreasing coverage. I haven't really seen a decrease in the payroll allocations that I'm processing. That would be a better question for the Sheriff Quattrone.
And you said fuel is one of the coverages, and fuel's on the rise. How long is that going to stay? So you're inevitably, there'll probably be more expenses incurred if that's the way it is. So.
And a lot of these Operation Stone Garden grants actually overlap each other. So typically, right now we're spending money from fiscal year 2024, not 2025 yet, as we have funds left over. Just because these details are really only taking place in the summer and fall months. Like last year, our personnel cost was $39,000. That's a lot of money for just overtime. So typically that's spread out over the 2-3 years that the grant is allowable for.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next proposed resolution number 20 is to amend the 2026 public health budget appropriations to accommodate acceptance of funds to support dental health workforce initiatives.
Good morning, Lacey Wilson, Public Health Director. Before you is a resolution to accept $25,000 in a sub-award made to the Health Department on behalf of the Chautauqua Health Network to do exactly what it explains, to help facilitate work on behalf of this HRSA grant within our community to ensure that we are supporting and helping to develop the dental workforce, specifically dental hygienists, as dental access is a real issue in our community. So this is an award that helps us to facilitate and use the strengths of our department to be a part of this collaborative effort in the county.
Questions, comments?
How is it used specifically, like?
So it goes to, so dental services are not a mandated public health effort on behalf of the state to our department, but certainly decades and generations of research shows how important, oral health is to our overall public's health. So we aren't going to provide the services ourselves or actually develop the services, but we do have within our planning and policy division, planners who will help and already really are helping facilitate like the studies, the data, and the meetings around, the collaboration with what's really called the Dental Action Council in the county. So it really goes to personnel and staff time within our department who has the expertise to do this type of work.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? Not hearing any, we'll take the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? It is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next proposed resolution 21 is to amend the 2025 budget for year-end reconciliations, Department of Mental Hygiene and Social Services.
Good morning, Blake Ehrig, Director of Administrative Services. You may recall last month I said I would be coming back up here to finalize DSS's 2025 year-end reconciliation. So this is what I'm here to do and the resolution before you. And really with the timing of everything for last month, it's very difficult for us to get all of 2025 expenses in the same time frame as other departments. So with this resolution here, I was able to get all the expenses from 2025 with the reporting date of February 2026. So we officially had a cutoff of last month, and we are going to close DSS's books. So this is just the year-end reconciliation for that.
Now, it was stated last night from your fill-in that
Yes.
we should not expect any of these budget adjustments next year. That is correct. Is that?
Yeah, that I don't know, but I can speak towards, and thank you, Sam, for filling in for that. Yes.
Well, wishful thinking.
Yes.
Questions or comments with any of the adjustments that are needed? Not hearing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried.
Thank you.
Next proposed resolution is 22, is to amend the 2026 budget to replenish the lake maintenance.
Sam Zafoto, Deputy Director of Finance.
Dave McCoy, Chautauqua County Watershed Coordinator.
All right, so this resolution is essentially to replenish the lake fund as it says. In 2024, we began putting $500,000 into the budget with the idea that we would basically reappropriate the unspent balance and kind of only budget for what we planned on using year to year. This year, it was a little bit off. Our estimate was off by $50,000. So last year, of the $500,000, we spent $350,000, but we budgeted $300,000. So basically, we're asking to bring forward back the $150,000 plus an additional $50,000 to bring this back whole here in '26 to the intended $500,000 for the lake fund.
The need to do this, does it just help be able to identify which, like, projects in the future, what's the need to make it whole again, and what's our philosophy moving forward?
I wish I had that crystal ball. I think we all do. When the occupancy tax reserve was flush, we had $5,750,000, at times almost $1 million. And we use those funds for projects of special opportunity and need, things that just sort of hit us, all of a sudden. And it made us, allowed us to be responsive and do things quickly. 2 years ago, we pretty much depleted the occupancy tax reserve when we funded the first year of the AER study. We took $600K out of there, and that put us almost back to zero. And we lost that ability to respond quickly to these sorts of things. So knowing that, the county executive decided to create a lake fund from the general fund, not knowing exactly what we would use it for every year, but that being said, the primary use has been early season maintenance on Chautauqua Lake, something we struggled with in the past, and hopefully we're over those humps. Last year, we had some really great press, I mean, everybody thought Chautauqua Lake was the best place in the world to be. And whether you were in Buffalo or Lakewood, you're picking up those papers and you say, oh, man, am I going to go there? Am I going to spend my time there? All the science that's been done on Chautauqua Lake didn't really show us that 2025 is going to be so terrible. Maybe you remember Allison Hersick here 2 months ago talking about the Jefferson Project, and the question was asked, what made 2025 so terrible? And I thought she gave a great answer. She said, well, we didn't see a big increase in nutrients. And I believe that's true, because we are doing an awful lot to stem those flows of nutrients, and we are making a dent, particularly in the North Basin. What they did see was a difference in temperature between 1.5 and 2 degrees. Now, the old timers will say, when you have a lot of ice, you're not going to have any weeds. We had a lot of ice last year. We had a lot of weeds. The ice, in some ways, probably helped the cold water species, particularly Elodea, which grows pretty nicely under the ice, as does Corelli pondweed. And when the ice did recede, the water warmed up quickly, gave it a head start, and it grew like crazy. We used the lake fund to get in there, not as quickly as we'd liked, but we got in there and we harvested the best we could, but we were so far behind the 8 ball we could never catch up. I'm hearing reports now that the lake is exactly the way it was last year. A lot of ice, it's mostly gone. We've seen a lot of growth already in March, turbid water. The Lake Fund is a great tool for this, and being able to get the CLA and other agencies out there early to address those concerns is our best opportunity at this point.
He had stated that this is a fund that was to help make up the difference initially, and is that our intent to, our intent now is this a standing program, and we intend to keep funding it as years go on?
That is my understanding, that the idea would be to continually have this in the budget, a kind of a rollover in this manner.
As an
That is
addition,
correct.
yeah, so that's good.
And as we talk about the next couple of resolutions, we'll see the utility of the lake fund, so.
Good. Question?
And the fund is available to other county lakes, Finley Lake.
I don't hear, well, speak
The
up.
other lakes are available, other lakes in the county can use this fund, I assume?
Yeah, it's
Like
not
Finley
just
Lake,
Chautauqua
because you mentioned
It's,
Chautauqua
no, it's
Lake.
through all the lakes in the county.
All the lakes, okay.
Okay, other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Next proposed resolution number 23 is to amend the 2026 budget occupancy tax funded projects.
Well, we had a big project load coming out of the pandemic and ARPA funding boost, if you will. There were a couple projects that just didn't get finished. Some of them were workload, some of them were regulatory issues. As you may read in the paper, wetlands are a big issue. the DEC's permitting process has been slowed down greatly by wetland issues. Also, in some areas, we have sensitive species, environmentally sensitive mollusks, imperiled mollusks, they're called by the Army Corps. Now we're required to do a mollusk survey on Chautauqua Lake, Chattacoin River, Casadega Creek. That doesn't seem complicated, but it's very expensive. Most of our occupancy tax projects are around 40K, 50K. To get a approved molluscologist to come in and do that survey is 30, 40K. I mean, so, and it takes more than a year, depending on when you get them out there and have them do their work and get their reporting. So it's making things complicated for us, and some of these projects that we're looking about moving into the 2026 year budget it's for that very reason.
Has the DEC responded in sense of their ability to timely, approve these projects and applications? Have they given you any sort of response that they're hiring to help with the workload, or that's the way it is and we continue, expect the same delays? Or you have heard nothing, which is an option too, and that might be the final option.
I think we're seeing, I hate to call it a perfect storm, but there are a number of factors that influence the timelines. One is the changes in the regulations, and then too, there's the actual enforcement of the regulations. And then also, there's been an awful lot of senior staff in the DEC retired, and they have new junior folks in there. And the older, more experienced guys, they had a lot of projects under their belt, and they would exercise some discretion. You say, yeah, this is the law, this is what we should do, but we realize that this is just a tiny thing in the bigger scheme of things, and, they would give us our permits. So it's not quite like that anymore.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Not hearing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Proposed resolution 23 is amended 2026 budget occupancy tax funded projects.
This would be 24, correct?
Sure, we don't need to do 23 again, do we?
That's fine.
24 would be fine. It's authorized intermunicipal agreement with Town of Mina.
Findlay Lake and the Town of Mina, they've been great to work with over the years. We've done a lot for Findlay. Done some occupancy tax projects down there. We helped them with their dam. We helped them with their wastewater systems. It's been a long haul for Findlay, but they're making a lot of very good progress very quickly. They are working with a consultant to develop a aeration system to combat the hazardous, harmful algal blooms on Findlay. Really a neat system. They have been largely funded by New York State, and of course Mina has been covering the local cost share. They had an issue with their CFA submission last year that would have funded the final design of the aeration system, was kicked out. They simply didn't upload the right form, and their hands are tied. The DEC couldn't do anything for them. Rather than have them wait a year and resubmit, decided to see if we couldn't help them out once again. We're asking for $27.5 from the Lake Fund because this is something we weren't anticipating. It's unusual Town of Mina is also putting in 27.5 for this, so it's 50/50 cost share. And I think, honestly, we'll learn an awful lot from Findlay, which is a 230-acre lake, and we'll be able to transfer some of that learning to Chautauqua, which is a 3,000-acre lake. We're looking at maybe doing the same sorts of things. So, and you can't discount, the economic impact of our lakes on particularly Findlay, but, 66% of the people who come to Chautauqua County come to visit a lake or waterway. And that's a big number. And, tourism spending, at least in 2019, was estimated to be about $282 million. So the money that we spend through the occupancy tax or the lake fund does have an economic return. It's an investment.
Questions, comments? Not hearing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Next proposed resolution, number 25, is to provide a federal cost share for the aquatic ecosystem restoration feasibility study for Chautauqua Lake.
As you know, the Chautauqua Lake AER is a project that's being progressed by the United States Army Corps of Engineers. It's been, it's the first federal investment in Chautauqua Lake that I believe has ever been made, at least maybe in a generation or so. Originally a $3 million project. County has a 50% cost share on that. We funded the first year by depleting the occupancy tax reserve. And now we're into the second year. And an interesting thing's happened because of the current federal administration. They have reduced the staff of the Army Corps, redirected them in a lot of different directions, and a lot of projects simply fell by the wayside. It's bad for a lot of people, but it worked out for us because there was unspent monies available. Our share would have been closer to $500,000 for 2026. We're getting out of it for 25. It's a good thing. However, we are asking for a federal earmark for 2027 for $600K, and our local cost share will probably be close to that. Maybe the lake fund, maybe the occupancy tax reserve, maybe a combination of the two will get us through that. But we're in year two. We're ahead of schedule. Our budget's solid, and we're looking forward to seeing the tentatively selected plan, which should be available for us later this summer. So that will be a big splash, so the public will know that we're making good progress.
Fred's not here, so I hate to interpret some of his theology, but, we've been talking about skin in the game, and I think that through these last resolutions, and including this one, the skin in the game is evident for this county. I mean, we do want to contribute, so, and we have been. And typically these lake resolutions and the promotion of has been a topic of debate, but usually it ends up in favor of whatever is being proposed. So, we'll continue to support these lake projects because we do agree with the importance of them and all the communities that have them. And it's important to keep putting it back in. And if you don't ever do that, it just leads to further issues of trying to chase your tail. So hopefully we can stay on top of the lake, the lakes and their validity.
Our lakes and waterways are such an important part of our economy, and the tourism that they bring in. If you look at the occupancy tax collections, with the exception of the pandemic year, they've grown every year. Even last year they grew. We're about 2.3 million, but that's 5% of those transactions. So that money is coming in, 20 times more is coming into the county and to our stakeholders and, you know, powering our economies. That's huge stuff.
Yep. Now if we can get them to roll through the airport. Questions, comments?
No, I think your point about it being an investment is the right way to look at it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Final resolution today is number 26. It's to authorize the entry into agreement with County Chautauqua Industrial Development Agency for the I-90 Veterans Memorial Commerce Park in Berkeley.
Hi, good morning. Stephanie Nick, Special Projects Coordinator. Lauren Sharp, Senior Planner with the Department of Planning and Development. So today is just authorizing entry into an agreement with the IDA for the I-90 Veterans Memorial Commerce Park.
Questions? You just want me to run through any of it? Or? So this funding was already allocated in the 24 and 25, or 25 and 26 capital budgets, and this will get the project over the finish line. Something that IDA has been working on for a while. Questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
What needs to be completed?
So it's essentially the entire infrastructure project. So the Ripley I-90, it was called Ripley Park, Ripley Interstate Park for a while. It's I-90 Veterans Memorial Commerce Park. It's a mouthful. But it's to make it shovel ready, they are, it's going to need new electrical utilities, sewer, water.
The access road.
Access road, yeah. And the funding has all been secured. We're just, this final 700,000 is already approved and consistent with the budget, but it's the last bit of funding to really finalize the project.
Quite a project.
It is.
Yeah. Other questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? It is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. That will conclude our proposed resolutions for the day. It'll bring us into our item for discussion, which is the potential changes to the administrative code. It's going to be presented by the Charter and Administrative Code Review Commission. And it's nice to have the individual present in attendance today. We don't have to work through technology glitches.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Kitty Lyons, Director of Finance and member of the Charter and Code Commission. There were many of us, some department heads for the first time, as well as some former legislators made up the commission. The commission is convened every 10 years, though, changes can happen. They don't have to wait 10 years to make changes, but you all approved the charter changes that were recommended last month with some amendment. And now this is another component of the commission, is to recommend changes to the admin code. As far as procedure goes, the executive files any changes to the admin code with the clerk of the legislature. If the legislature does not object, those changes go into effect in 30 days from that date. So because there was so many changes, we felt it was in consultation with the chairman, it would be in our interest to review the changes with the respective legislative committees. By your full meeting next week, the hope is if there are any recommended changes to what was proposed, that we would like to try and incorporate them if possible, and then they would be filed with the legislature, and that 30-day period would begin. So just to review, some of the highlights, I'm certainly not going to go through all the changes, and some of you, I think, have already heard this presentation in other meetings. So, we made things consistent with the changes that were made in the charter. Some things related to the budget procedures, like in the charter where we're now referring just to the local law for the budget procedures after the tentative budget is delivered, which are the procedures of the legislature and, the county executive. So, those changes were consistent. We updated other things that were, brought things up to date in terms of our current overall organizational structure within each of the, areas under the county executive's responsibility. The finance department is a good example. We've consolidated, fiscal operations, so that's now reflected in the admin code. We also updated language regarding who the county executive would have as a part of the cabinet. The current admin code, specifies some specific titles, so we thought our recommendation as a commission was that really should just be at the discretion of the county executive who that executive would like to have on their cabinet. I don't know if any of you, having been through this presentation before, have any other questions that I can try and answer on some of the proposed changes. I'd be happy to do so, but again, I don't want to go through, all of the pages, but I'm certainly happy to address any specific questions.
Anyone have any specific questions or anything that they want to discuss?
And if you do after today, feel free to reach out to any member. The members of the commission, I think you probably were provided that list of members previously. We worked very collaboratively. We really spent a lot of time going through, the changes that we came up with. We really wanted to kind of go end to end on this document and get, really scrub it, so to speak. So.
Okay. Well, thank you. And if the committee has any questions, they can reach out and add anything that they wish, so. Next, we have a overview and review of fund balance.
Yes, this is our year-end 2025 variances. So first, I'm Jen Swan, Budget Director, and then, go ahead.
Kitty Lyons, Director of Finance.
So really quickly, this is something, and I think that all of you have probably seen this before, possibly, I'm assuming. But this is something that we walk through right around March of every year, sort of giving you a breakdown of the material variances. And what we consider material is 175,000, 200,000 and higher. Anything else is kind of bunched together in another number below that consists of the rest of the pluses and minuses that are across the rest of the various departments. So I'll just walk you through this really quickly if you like. We have our general fund local share, our amended budget general fund local share that we start off with to the tune of $10,158,574. The amount of fund balance that's been used in year-end reconciliations year to date, including March, is $3.282 million. And that brings our amended budget to $13.441 million. The actual general fund local share is $10.78 million. So the way that this looks is it's a little bit confusing because it looks like we actually have a $2.66 million surplus. In reality, we actually do not. So if you take that amended budget general fund local share at the very top, the 10.1, and you look at the actual general fund local share of 10.78, we are actually at roughly a $600,000 variance. So the 3.282 in year-end reconciliations is because the departments that are over budget, regardless of the other departments that have surpluses, we are still tapping into our general fund, our fund balance to cover those overages, even though we don't always necessarily have to. We make each department adjust within their department, regardless of any other surpluses that exist throughout the county. So the overall actual variance is actually roughly a $600,000 deficit to our originally amended budget. So down below, we have our various surplus and deficit numbers listed. In some cases, it's by department. In other cases, so we have notable variances. You have your sales tax. Our revenue actually turned out to be a surplus of just over $1 million. Our real property taxes.
Can I ask about that, that one specifically? Might as well ask while we're
Sure.
covering them.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a pretty good surplus there. What is the projection of why we incurred $1 million surplus?
Well, I mean, I would maybe say that a $1 million surplus on the size of our sales tax budget is not material, even though I wouldn't say $1 million isn't material, but, you know, our total sales tax budget is, I should know it off the top of my head, but it's, with the municipalities, it's about 98 million. So this is our share of our surplus. So I would call us
1%.
closer to break even. You know, a plus or minus of $1 million is to me kind of as close as you can get to coming right in at our sales tax budget. But yeah,
But it's as of March 12th.
no, these are all of the receipts through the end of December. This is for this is a year-end
Okay.
variance for the year 2025.
Yeah, so the March 12th date is the date that we updated these numbers inclusive of year-end
Okay.
resolutions, because those resolutions were pre-filed by that date.
Okay.
So, you know, because there's a couple that come in March, so this includes those resolutions as well. That's primarily
Yeah.
what that date
Yeah.
is to represent, is to show you that we've included everything through this month.
And
Everything that's been amended. So
For
you did all the
2025.
year-end amendments last month, so.
Oh, and you know, and I just wanted to bring that to the attention that, you know, someone that may not be as familiar with the budget and the budget process may say, geez, $1 million is a big difference.
Yes.
You know, and so, you know, the rhetoric around that is that it actually is a pretty accurate estimate throughout the year if you look at the whole thing as its whole. And, you know, and as Bob commented, it's in a plus situation, which is always great. You know, we see, you know, we don't want to be in the position where we're overestimating these types of things just to be able to balance a budget when we're coming up, when we're doing the budget.
Correct.
Just to not ever be able to accomplish it. And, you know, you know, I've seen other municipalities do that, and it ends up negatively affecting them. You know, so it's great to try to be as correct as possible, and as the kitty said, this is as correct as you can be.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
to be a
there's-
1% plus or minus is great. So.
Sales tax, you know, we base our forecast on trends, anything we may or may not know about changes, you know, coming ahead of us, or economic conditions that we're facing. So, you know, I felt good that, you know, yeah, you never want to over budget or under budget. So if you can come in really close to your budgeted number, you know, I think that's good.
Do other municipalities, maybe some of the smaller ones, reach out to you to, you know, ask what to expect? You know,
A couple do. I'll get maybe you know, Westfield often calls me just to say, you know, what kind of percent increase are you including in your budget next year, or you know, but they will, a couple reach out, not many. I mean, they probably look at their trends just the way we look at our trends, and
adjust accordingly.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. And then down below, you've got your real property taxes. We actually experienced a loss on auctions this year to the tune of $349,000. Our interest and penalties came in at a surplus of $834,000, and adjustment for uncollected taxes resulted in a $1.47 million deficit. Our pilot payments came in at a surplus, which we don't typically experience, at least not to the tune of this amount, but we have a $327,000 surplus there. Our tribal compact, that is something that is in litigation right now, so of the $650,000 that we budgeted, we have received none of it, and it is still in litigation. I don't know if you wanna touch on.
Yeah, that's pretty much,
discussion.
I did, when we were at NISAC this week, I did sit in on that committee, to get an update, and it is still in dispute. They are still working on it. That was about the update we got. So, you know, that will be something that unless something is settled before our, we start delivering the 2027 budget, we might want to consider not budgeting for it. We may get the funds at some point. I don't know if it will be retroactive. Like, one of the things that have impacted what our current fund balance is that a couple of years ago, the compact had been in dispute, and we hadn't received the funds for many years, and we got a one-time catch-up payment in a given year. So that could happen again, but it's kind of like until we know, we don't know.
Was there any hope for it?
What the resolution actually that committee passed, which, what the resolution does is it kind of gives NISAC their marching orders of what, all counties want them to advocate for. And so in the Native Affairs and Gaming Committee, their resolution was, urging the state to, settle these, disputes and, so.
And we also, since we don't know what's going to happen, we obviously don't accrue this revenue because it's just not safe to assume that we're going to be getting any retroactive payments again. So.
Call it a bonus.
Correct. So, unfortunately, we do have to count that as a deficit for 2025.
I don't know if can you talk about you probably can't really talk about the litigation and what it's about in general, like
Well, the
amount?
The dispute is over, that the nations that operate casinos, and that's where this revenue comes from, is a share of the casino revenue, and whether or not they actually owe it or not. Or if the agreement actually expired. And there's nothing necessary, like what was discussed was not confidential in nature or anything like that, but it's just, it's more over, because there was a contract, it's called a compact in this case, that went for so many years, and then thereafter, one party's looking at it as continues on a one-year basis, in perpetuity, and the other party is saying, no, it just ended. So, yeah. So, yeah, it's just, they just seem to be stuck again, and, hopefully, it'll get resolved at some point, yeah. But, there's other counties that are impacted much greater. Those revenues are much more significant for them than they are for our county, but.
Okay.
Opioid settlements.
Yes, the opioid settlements amount is also at a deficit to the tune of $437,000.
And I'll add on that, what we budgeted based on a payment schedule that we had previously received, and getting an update on that during the year, there were some payments that, it's hard to describe, I want to say it right, that I guess at the end of the day that I should not have included as payments we would get A lot of these settlement agreements are pretty complex, and they have schedules and early payment options and things like that. So sometimes the timing of the payments is a little hard to predict. But there were some one-time payments that really were for something else and would not have come to us to begin with. So, those have been taken out going forward, but there's new settlements coming in, so, it is a fluid, thing right now. There's still some litigation going on that, will only add to what our, projection is of receipts going forward.
And in defense, I suppose that, you get these settlement things, and I'm sure it's not a 2 or 3 page report.
No.
And so, you have to thumb through all of these different scenarios. And I'm sure that it probably is hard to pick. Over the years, I've always been a little reserved to utilize the funds in certain ways, and part of it is because the distribution. Hopefully, moving forward, we can have that a little more correct, which it sounds like we will.
And then,
So.
Additionally, it was some of this was related to the accounting treatment of the funds, so, in any case, I think we're good going forward. We know what our annual numbers are gonna be going forward. There were just a couple of one-time payments that I thought should have been included as our share of the settlement, and they're not. So, but I got clarification on that later in 2025.
Okay.
And that brings us to a surplus in carts, to the tune of $351,000. Excuse me. The county clerk's office had a surplus of $236,000. County attorney had a deficit of $399,000.
The clerk's office, is that in a surplus of fees that they've collected? What was the, we always are considering adjusting revenue in that area, and is it a new program that's collecting
No, I think it's,
titling, or is it just?
I think it's a combination of a little bit of excess revenue and a little bit of an underspending in expenses.
Okay.
I don't think it's all one or the other. Sam, I don't know if you know that off the top of your head.
Both at the DMV and the clerk's office, we did have surpluses around.
Okay.
Good. Well, and it's a minimal amount, I would say, but it's a positive, and hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely.
The DMV finishing above budget was a very positive development.
Sure, and hopefully that's a continuing trend, so, people utilizing it.
Yeah, and then just to back up quickly, that card surplus was mainly due to some prior year revenue that we received.
Okay. Unanticipated that we
Yeah,
received.
We had kind of written some off, and then we finally got it.
Okay.
Board of Elections also had a surplus of $277,000. Buildings and Grounds shows a local share surplus of $310,000, although that surplus was due to, you may recall the HRC power washing project. They budgeted $500,000 for 2025 to have that project done. They were not able to complete the project, so this surplus, these funds are actually being rolled into 2026, which they were earlier this morning through the resolution that Buildings and Grounds came up and discussed with you. The sheriff's office experienced a $661,000 deficit. Mental hygiene, we've got the mental hygiene programs subdepartment experienced a deficit of $809,000, while mental health law had a surplus of $221,000. Social services admin experienced a surplus of $1.78 million. Family assistance, foster care, and safety net, I think we've all been sort of keeping our eye on those during the course of the last several months. We've all known that those had been trending over, and those were covered in the year-end amendments and discussed, I think, at length. But those were also noted deficits. Office for Aging Services experienced a surplus of $363,000. Planning, the watershed subdepartment had a surplus of $468,000. And then the material vacancy savings, I know, this is always a question every year during the budget process, and then also at year end, trying to see where the vacancy savings that we budget for all of our county departments actually shakes out. The carts department actually had a deficit in just their vacancy savings budgeted amounts to the tune of $336,000. DSS admin experienced a deficit to the tune of those specifically budgeted amounts to the tune of $388,000. And then the various other pluses and minuses, they netted $796,000 surplus favorable.
And I have a separate handout to go over with you just on vacancy savings after we're done on this.
Okay, great.
Do we intentionally keep the vacancy savings separately? Because just looking at carts of their surplus
Yes.
to the vacancy savings. I mean,
Yes.
they're still in a surplus, but, okay.
Yes. Yeah, since the vacancy savings is something that's such a topic of discussion during the budget process each year, and then during year end, I mean, there's always a question of how is the vacancy savings affecting each department? Can they do it? Can they not? Do they feel it's a reasonable expectation? I mean, all of these questions come up numerous times during both of those processes. So we think it would probably be better just to break it out separately when we do have it budgeted, just to sort of keep everybody informed as to how it's truly performing
Okay.
countywide.
Now that watershed line goes
Yes.
back to the general fund. And we just put $250,000 back into, or $200,000 back into it. So that, in essence, offsets, am I correct? So
Yeah, again, we're
Yes.
reappropriating some.
Okay,
Yes.
so taking it out of the general fund isn't really a loss by putting it back in this year, if they came in at 460,000.
Correct.
Okay, that makes me feel a lot better.
And then we have, that last line right there, we have, other surpluses that are in various departments to the tune of smaller amounts, but they obviously, when added together, make a much larger amount. And that's really what lands us at the totals that were summarized above.
Those other surpluses, various departments, I mean, that's a big number in sense of just being in an other. Is there any standouts of, just a brief definition
The
that it's?
standouts are up here, and that's,
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
hard, I mean, there's so many accounts, and, so many of them have plus this, minus this, plus this, minus this.
Understood, yeah.
So, but I'm-
And to keep in mind, I suppose, of our large budget, that other various departments, variance is really quite small. What would you say that percentage variance is in comparison to the whole budget, if you will, so it's very minimal. Less than 1%, right?
I mean, another way, like I kind of look at it, is this 3.7, surplus across all other county departments offsets all of the resolutions you did last month. So, for example, rather than using fund balance for all of the departments that we amended the budget for last month, if you would have taken a surplus from another county department, we wouldn't have used any fund balance in any of the resolutions. So at the end of the day, the total net expense and revenue is gonna be what the adjustment to fund balance is. You can't look at it at any one department individually.
Understood. And, the issue, or the conversation is usually when we're putting together a budget, it's a tight budget, and we're
It is.
scraping around to find $1 million or $500,000, or, you're scratching your head trying to come up with a $3 million difference because it would affect a tax rate of some sort, or the cap, or what do you cut to make up the difference. And and throughout the year, generally speaking, we've done pretty well with being able to cover those things. But it does make a hard thing when you're developing that budget to really put your finger on something that you can change and expect to change it in a positive way. Back when we were redoing the budget, would you have added $1 million to the sales tax? Well, no, we
Right.
did that as best as we could, and as it is, we raised carts revenue but, you know, who'd have thought we would have accepted some more unexpected revenue? You know, the county clerk, we actually did raise theirs and cut some other expenses, but we still had a surplus, you know, so it's really hard to predict, and we do the best that we can. And, you know, going forward to this year's budget, we remember that, but.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, and again, as I noted when I was going through the numbers above, you know, our general fund local share that we originally planned on, that was, you know, based on the amended budget numbers throughout the year, was 10.1 million, where we landed in actuality was 10.7. So, I mean, a $600,000 deficit is nothing in the grand scheme of a $300 million budget. So we really, really, you know, our departments did a very, very good job staying, really kind of keeping things, you know, as conservative as they could, and really kind of hitting our targets to the best of our ability. So, you know, the credit goes to them for that, because they did a great job.
Yeah, altogether, no, and that's a great achievement, and I think all of us would be satisfied with those sort of results on a yearly basis, for sure.
Absolutely, so would we.
Yeah.
Does the county attorney's office's deficit have to do with the new office itself, I'm assuming?
No.
No.
No, that I believe had more to do with the originally planned consolidation, where they were taking on the social services, legal staff as well.
Yep.
That was under the previous, county attorney. That was her plan, and there were some expense switches in the middle of the year, I think, because that was the plan, and now that plan will not be followed through. That's not going to happen anymore. So this year, the budget performance will be very different. And
Yeah, we did shift
yeah.
to different costs also under, like, the sewer district's legal services began being funneled through the county attorney's office.
Okay.
Which was a change during the course of last year. That was part of the reason also.
Yep, so that, you know, this year you're gonna see some changes to essentially right-size everything back to the way that it
Back to
was before, so.
This is really not a question for you, but I'm curious about the sheriff's deficit.
That was presented last month when they, presented their budget amendment.
Okay. Was that a public
They
safety
had a
or-
variety of
Yes.
things that,
Okay.
Yes.
you know,
I guess I
resulted
don't
in it,
remember
but.
the specifics
Well, no,
of
it would
that,
have come
but-
to audit and control as well, so when you were doing all the year-end resolutions
Oh,
last month,
mhm.
that, they would have explained what all of their variances related to then.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they could.
There were a lot of pluses and minuses in the sheriff's office's year-end budget.
And a lot of, I think, a good portion of it was associated with the jail too, in the sense of overtimes and care. But
Yes. Yep. Okay.
any other questions on this
We have
particular?
A little bit more on the bottom.
I'm
to go
sorry.
over.
I know you guys wanna get going.
Oh, no, I just.
We have, at the bottom part, you're gonna see an interest earnings, surplus, 775,000. The 911 refers to the sheriff's office's E&W 911 subdepartments, that are reviewed during the course of the budget process. Those actually experienced a deficit of 111,000, but they do have reserves that cover those overages. So we call that out and we do account for those, but those are covered with their own resources, so to speak. Occupancy tax surplus was roughly 181,000. And then below, you have the projected adjustment to the general fund balance. Again, you'll see that the general fund surplus between expense and revenue, matches the number that's at the very top of our actual general fund local share of 10,780,243. And down below, we have, you know, just the other little adjustments, the adjustments to capital reserve for capital projects, the 911 reserves that I just touched on very briefly, and then the occupancy tax reserve, since there was a surplus there. So the adjustment to unobligated general fund balance would be 11.625 million.
And just to add to that, so our originally adopted budget was about $5 million use of fund balance. So, you know, from the adopted budget until our full actual results, we are now, you know, through the amended budget amendments, going to use a total of 11.6 million of the fund balance to close out 2025. So, you know, the amendments through the year, I think the bulk of that additional use of fund balance is related to safety net. You know, throughout the year, I think we had about $4 million adjustment to safety net before the year-end resolutions.
Yes.
And then you had additional use of fund balance for safety net during the year-end resolution. So, you know, I think this is a good illustration, as sometimes you can't foresee what might happen through the course of the year, and having, you know, sufficient fund balance to fall back on for these kind of deficit situations. If our fund balance was much lower, we would have had to take different action through the course of the year to make reductions in certain places. But I do have a fund balance exhibit. This kind of leads into the fund balance. But if you have, but I'll wait till in case you have any other questions on the variances. And just as a caveat too, these are unaudited numbers, subject to change. So we will give you the final numbers once we have them. You know, I don't expect anything to change materially, but, you know, might have a little change here or there. But, you know, we're still in the process of closing everything out, making all the adjustments to the reserves and such. So I'd like to make sure you understand. These aren't final.
Kitty, I have a question. And I'll use the example with the work that was not completed on the HRC building. We reflected that as a reduction of our expense in 2025. And so that reduction of expense went into, augmented, increased our fund balance. And now we've passed resolutions to increase the use of that fund balance from our 2026 budget.
Correct.
Now, I believe in the past, the way that situation would have been treated is we would have encumbered those funds in 2025.
Do you want to answer, or do you want me to go? I know you. That, we can encumber funds for purchase orders, so purchase of goods. And we can accrue expenses if the work has already been completed but not yet paid for. In this case, the work is not completed, it's a service, and so we can't accrue for it or encumber it.
You can't encumber for services,
No.
but you can encumber for purchases.
For if there was an open purchase order,
Yes.
like, that's what really the encumbrance is all related to purchase orders. Like, we received, you know, we have a purchase order out for supplies.
Yes.
They, you know, we haven't paid the invoice yet,
Okay.
but for
Thank you.
services, yeah.
I wasn't aware that we could not encumber for services. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I mean, if the services were already performed,
If they
we
were
would accrue for them, but,
If it was
They'd be
completed.
accrued then, not encumbered.
correct, yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
boy, I have to ask, what's the difference between encumber and accrued? And I've heard, but
They're-
encumbered,
They're kind of the same thing, but slightly different. They do the same thing mechanically, but encumbered is encumbering the budget. So it amends the actual budget, so it adds the budget automatically to the next year. Accruing is just adding the expense to the prior year, you know, that we know we have this bill outstanding that we're gonna have to pay, so we're gonna accrue the expense in the year that it was incurred.
So basically, if this project, if the work was completed in 2025, but we just hadn't been invoiced yet,
oh, okay.
we would then put in an accrual to hold that funding, hold that total expense amount in the 2025 fiscal year, so that it does not affect the 2026 budget, since the work was actually completed in 2025. Since the work was not completed, we don't accrue it, and it's going to have to be a 2026 expense.
Okay.
because winter hit so early, so it's,
Mhm.
they couldn't get it completed.
Yeah,
So
okay.
hopefully that helps.
Yeah, no,
maybe
I'm
clarify
fine.
a little bit.
Other questions or comments before we, oh. We're gonna, do you wanna do general fund next, or the, you alluded to that?
Yes, she's doing, I think she's got the fund balance.
Okay.
Estimated projections that she's handing out next. Bless you.
And I'm gonna try, my intent is to be brief on this, just because, this is just a very rough projection, because there's a lot of adjustments to the reserves that have not been posted yet. So that's why I have projected and highlight. So this is just taking, our fund balance exhibit from the 2026 adopted budget. And so, this represents our 2024 actual, and you can see, partway down the column there, the assigned for subsequent years budget is the $5 million. So at the end of 2024, we booked that, so to speak, assignment of fund balance for the 2025 budget. So up top, I'm showing that we're gonna use another $6.5 million. All other things being equal, our unassigned fund balance would be projected to be $30,500,000, that bar kind of partway down the page. Now, I would say right now not to look too much at the projected years, because I have not updated this for the 2025 actual results, which would impact the projected year. But I just wanted to give you a rough idea of, where it looks like our unassigned fund balance will be at the end of this year. So it appears that we would be, roughly at 10% of our general fund appropriations. But this will change slightly, because I don't have the final appropriations put into here. But this is just a very rough.
And just for
look.
clarification, what was our target that we had adopted?
In the financial management policy, the range is between 5 and 15%. And down below, you can see the chart here. It shows what, based on the appropriations of $301 million, the minimum unassigned would be $15 million. The target was set at 12.5. At 30, so that's 37.7 million, or the maximum 15% would be 45 million.
Okay.
And, right now, we're like right in the middle of our range at 10%.
Okay.
But we'll have, definitely by the April meeting, we'll have this, updated pretty close to final. So I'll bring that back.
Yeah, and if you can update the projections, that's always helpful, so we
Yeah,
can,
that'll be
yeah,
helpful.
understand,
Yep.
and we understand those are projections, and, that's a moving target for sure, but,
And then also at the, next month, Legislator Johnson had requested to have a little bit further discussion on the various reserves that are, listed here on the fund balance exhibit, so I will be able to do that at that time as well.
Can we invest those in the stock market?
anyone have any questions regarding this general fund balance handout here, and anything they want to bring to the order or attention before we move on?
Okay,
Okay. Yeah.
did you have a question, Bob?
I'll just,
Yeah, I will.
I guess just so we didn't project that $6.5 million deficit or reduction. So trend for the next 5 years. Am I making sense?
Yes.
Yeah, so when this gets updated each year, it'll project out how much fund balance is assigned for the subsequent year, so you can see, you know,
Right, so we're projected 42,712 for 2026, assuming nothing.
that includes what we assigned for the 2026 budget, which is $2.5 million of fund balance.
Okay.
So I'll have the full projections updated for next month's meeting, because that's the full 5-year plan of expense revenue, which feeds into this fund balance
Takes into-
exhibit,
okay.
yeah.
You know, in the general fund balance, there's there's things that don't make this projection sheet. And those things that I want to bring into attention are those things that you, during budget season, sometimes have a question mark about, and you're like, well, safety net, let's take that one, right? What are we gonna do with it, and how much do you add to it? And so that's a number that's not in the 2026 or 2027 projection, but it's something that is very real that we face every year. And so it's, you know, that projection is not in this projected model, but will it continue to influence it negatively or positively, I guess,
Yeah.
you know, and that's
So-
another, and that's just
Yeah.
one projection.
And the model itself can be run on any number of scenarios you'd want to see. You can say,
Sure.
let Kitty, you know, plug in, you know, the worst case scenario for safety net, and you can see the net result, or you can say, hey, you know, tell me what the tax, you know, or, you know, whatever assumptions, and that's why when you get the full packet up for the projections, it tells you exactly what assumptions were used in that scenario, so. you can
So
always-
let's, you know, maybe for future reference, when you are re-updating this and also doing that, if we look at safety net specifically and the influence or impact that has on the general fund balance in years to come, if we continue to handle it as we have in the past. So the last few years, we've taken money out of the general fund to fund it during the year, but also those unanticipated costs we anticipate utilizing. So how much have we utilized, and if we continue, if we stay down that path?
Yeah, so the model is kind of at a higher level than that, but it projects out what our contractual costs are, at a total, so, I mean, but I can put some factor in but I'll reach out to you to see like what kind of specific trend do you want me to build in?
That specific trend is
Yeah.
if we.
Because what
continue not
it
to add
does is
in
it
the budget,
takes,
but-
it'll take the 2025 actual,
Yep.
and then it'll project an escalator going forward of the total expenses and total revenues going forward based on the 2025 actual and based on the 2026 budget. It looks at different line items, look at different methods to project out that line item. Some are just use a 3%, some are at a specific dollar amount. You know, fringe is based on whatever the personnel costs are, so things like that are kind of built in, but I can come up with some assumptions for safety net and kind of project those out separately.
You know, I think that one's been
I suppose it has to get to a point where you have to not stop projecting. Thank you for that that answered what I was trying to get to before, so, thank you for that.
Well, and you know, there's a lot of adjustments through the fund balance through the year, but I was specifically looking at just the safety net, because that's been such a large impact, and
Been
it's
recurring.
recurring.
Yes.
And that's why I think if we could focus on that one particular and include that in some sort of a projection in the way we have been handling it over the last couple of years. And, you know, we have that debate, and we will again this year, I'm sure, during budget season. So I'm trying to be a little forward in preparing our discussion for that meeting. You know, we argued last year that we didn't want to adjust that because we want to see if it's going to be a trend. And those, you know, general fund use usually isn't a one-time expense. it's not something to sustain a reoccurring expense. And so that argument is very valid. And what is it going to do? Have we ridden the curve? Is it coming down? Well, it hasn't showed that because we continue
Yeah.
to spend. And
So really the way the model works is, here's all the assumptions on how all the expense and revenue grows, okay? And then it says, okay, if you're gonna assume your tax levy is not gonna be any more than what the tax cap allows, what's left over to fund? Okay, so, whether that's a surplus or deficit. So that's how it'll say, hey, all of these expenses projected out this way, all the revenues projected out this way, the tax levy projected out this way. Okay, are you left with a deficit? And that means like, okay, now we have to make up $6 more million or $8 more million, unless we're making changes to the expenses or revenues during the budget process. So that's kind of how it flushes out. And then you can assume that, from that deficit projection, you can say, okay, is our intent to use fund balance for that? Is it to go back and, reduce expenses somewhere? Because at some point you have to get to the balanced budget, so. But I'll bring that next month.
Okay.
It'll be easier with the visual.
any other questions with fund balance before we?
Well, it's been a long morning, but, I mean, I guess,
Is it still morning?
yeah, my
Barely.
position is how much, at what point do we say, okay, the fund balance is high enough that we can start to return something to the taxpayers? And I see what you're saying, that it's going down, we're using more of it for safety net, and that's a concern, so, but.
Yeah, I mean.
I don't know at what point, when it gets like.
We generally use fund balance every year in the budget. We have for a long time.
Yeah, and
so
it's like, my wife and I have a rainy day fund, so, and we know we're gonna use it from time to time, so.
Yeah.
And I get that. but-
Well, no, and I think the important part there, Tom, is when I asked the question initially is, where are we falling in that with, and we're right in the middle, like you just described, that 5 to 15%, our own adopted target is 12.5%, but also we're falling in that 10%. So are we right? You're questioning that? Those are the answers. And that's exactly, we're kind of right in the middle of where that should fall. And actually, we're short of our own adopted target. So, we are using, we're using it, and it's not too extravagant, and it's not enough where it's not too low where you are running into situations where you have to fund things differently, like Kitty had alluded before. And also, it's important to realize that the money that is in the fund balance is helping contribute to our capital growth, in sense of the money has been invested into various things, and it enables us to be able to effectively manage our cash flow situation a little more easily and also favorably, so. Next.
Okay. Vacancy savings. So the exhibit that I provided to you reflects by each individual account, the 1100 account on the top and the 1999 account on the top reflect the 1100 account is just base wages, because that's how we apply the vacancy savings. So in the budget, we'll just look at we'll just go down to the first one that has vacancy savings. So we took the court officers 1162, 1110, 1,000,000, 2,575 budget, and 5% of that was budgeted as a credit amount in the 1999 account. So if you go all the way across, to the total amended budget, their total budget for wages was 952,000. So that's how to read this report, okay? And then in the middle column for 1,100 in 1999, you have the actual amount, okay? We don't put any actual in the 1999, that's just the budgeted credit for the savings that we projected. So so one thing I would say is I would look at the column that is for 1,100 remaining budget with encumbrances. So any department that had a minus amount here in this, a negative amount here would be a department that reflects they did not meet, take vacancy savings out of the equation, they exceeded their budget for wages. And that's just base pay. It doesn't include overtime or anything else like that, because we did not apply vacancy savings to those other types of wages. So there's a few departments that went over that, nothing extreme, but, well, except for carts, they did go over that. And there was a reason for that because of how they had budgeted, I think, some of the substitute pay. So it was a little bit of a one-off. But you can see most departments had a surplus there, which means they had vacancy savings. The very far column, all the way to the right, would tell you where everyone landed, including the vacancy savings, net of the vacancy savings that they had, so some may have, the ones that are negative would show that maybe, if you look right at the district attorney line, about 5 down, they had vacancy savings budgeted at 156,000, but in total, they came in, $43,000 over budget. So they met part of that savings, they just didn't meet all of it. So, going back to last month when some people were making adjustments and said they didn't meet their vacancy savings target, it doesn't mean they didn't meet any of it, it just means they didn't meet some of it. Then on page 2, so I'm not gonna go through every row here, down at the bottom, I added some percentages, so, did I not give you one? Sorry, I said, did I not give you one? Okay. The actual, for the 1,100 account, I just did it on 1,100 and then the total, but, our actual wages compared to our budgeted wages came in at 93% of our budget. In other words, our vacancy savings was 7.1%. Now keep in mind, some departments have offsetting revenues, and I'll get to that in a little bit. If you go over to the far right, net of vacancy savings, we came in under budget 2.4%, or $1.8 million. So overall, but this is not the net local share variance. Remember, some departments have offsetting revenue, so if they didn't have the expense, they didn't have the revenue either. So there's some departments I then looked at, so there's a couple of bigger departments that have those types of offsetting revenues, like Harrell Herring. The public defender, had a surplus of 673,000. Well, they wouldn't have had that revenue either. So taking them out of the equation, and also taking mental hygiene, account 4320, they had a $1.1 million surplus on vacancy savings, on their wages net of vacancy savings. Well, they get almost 100% reimbursement one way or another. So I took them out of the equation. So then if you're looking just down below, all other departments, net, we're right at our budget. We budgeted 5% vacancy savings, and that's exactly where we came in. Never happens.
How did that happen?
I don't know. But, I know there's question, on how and where we budget for the savings, and it is a challenge. I mean, some departments, you know, even our own finance department, we didn't meet the target. We had vacancies, some savings, but we didn't meet the full target. You know, we want people to have their positions filled to the extent possible, but we know in reality, you know, somebody retires, it takes a little while to rehire, or they come in at a lower wage than, you know, the incumbent. But it's really hard to pinpoint what's gonna happen in each individual department, so we do budget kind of on average across the board, across all the departments. There's a few departments, like the legislature, we know there's, for the most part, gonna be 19 of you most of the year, so we don't budget any vacancy savings in your department. And there's a couple other departments in that category too, so we don't budget vacancy savings there, but, you know, can we fine tune it a little bit more? You know, we've only been doing this a few years, you know, and so far we've achieved our target. I'd like it if we were getting it more down to, you know, 3%. I think plus or minus 3% for, you know, positions is kind of a good variance target, but we're still trending.
Would that be considered, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Let's go back 15 years ago, which we can both do. Would that be considered a normal vacancy?
I mean, I think so. I mean, some departments, you know, plus or minus that, but on average, you know, COVID really threw things out of whack, and we're still, you know, to a certain extent recovering from that.
COVID affected me. I can't remember anything.
I know.
I can't smell or taste anything either.
But it went so high, I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, I mean, and I can go back and look, but we definitely were, I would probably, just off the top of my head, I would assume we were at least 3%, because we never budgeted for any, you know, and so then we would have years where we were consistently having
I guess that's what I was getting at.
a budget surplus,
I don't remember
so.
ever even considering as much as we did the vacancy.
And that was, it really came to light during COVID
Yeah.
because we were so off of our, I mean, you know, sometimes we'll, you know, departments are on here or there, they'll say they'll only budget a position for half of the year because they know it'll take time to, or that was maybe a mechanism for kind of whittling away at their
But
budget.
it was never at the forefront.
No, as a, you know,
Not-
an
not-
assumption,
right,
yeah.
Not until COVID hit, you're right.
No, and I, you know, that was my comment more so in different avenue is, you know, looking at this now as a useful budgeting tool or device is important to try to be correct as we can. And, you know, and back to my discussion about the general fund as well as, and some of those other things that, you know, when it comes down to the budget and we're working between a difference of trying to fill a very small gap, the vacancy savings has assisted in some of that in the sense that it's filled some of those gaps. Now, we're kind of used to it, it's built in the budget now. But, you know, as long as it's not negatively affecting us in the sense that it has become now something that's negatively affecting us, and it hasn't yet. And it seems like as long as we keep our finger on the adjustment button to
Yes.
make sure that it doesn't negatively affect us. You know, as we stated, you know, 15 years ago, it was pretty much always a positive thing. Like, you know, if you had some vacancy savings, you had a surplus, and that's great. So we don't want to cripple ourselves in the sense of
Right.
having it be a negative thing for us.
Yeah.
But as I think, you know, it's enabled us to be more correct in the sense of keeping our tax rate lower and also not cushioning our general fund with those surpluses. So, you know, this is a tool that we've used to help our residents in the sense of we're not collecting money that we don't need it.
Over-budgeting,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so I think as long as we continue to monitor it as best we can, and in reality, we don't want any vacancy savings, we want to employ everybody, you know?
That's
But
very
this
true.
is something that we're going to experience. And
It's just the
so
reality of the process,
Yeah.
to a certain degree.
That's right.
And it's
So
funny when you budget for a job, but it's not a job until somebody's doing it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of it's a void, I don't know what you call it, but
Yeah.
until somebody's getting a paycheck for it. It's really, so it's fun to budget it, not filling, not fun.
Yeah.
Can I ask one question? This will be my last one.
Open
You
communication.
probably already answered this, but I'll pull a John Runkle, dumb guy in the room. I know I don't even have to preface it that I'm the dumb guy in the room, but, so, back to the general fund. Exhibit W. It says, 2025 projected, 30,516,899. But that's not that'll be more of a set number next month?
When you say 38 million, do you mean
30
30
million.
million?
30
Oh, yeah,
million.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So
Well,
next
he did
month,
say
did you say we
30,
should
yes,
be
30 million.
pretty
I
close
think-
to having that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect that
It'll be closer to
number to
final.
change materially, but it could, I'm just saying it could change a little bit, and especially the out years figures will change, because I haven't dropped in,
Right.
all the actual in between
Well,
here.
I enjoy out in the world talking to constituents, the anti-fund balance. I've heard everything from 45 million to 58 million. Why do we have that much money? And I go, well, I don't think it's quite that much. And then I have the other friend side that it's never enough. So so hopefully next month we'll have I want to be able to say it's $30 million.
Yes, yeah.
I want to have a
we'll
number
Yes.
to say. Okay. Thank you.
I mean, you can, if you wanna look at the 2024 year end, those are actual numbers.
No, I don't want to look at those.
People want to be more current than that.
No, you want to.
Well, yeah, but
This isn't, you just want to try to be accurate. Like,
Yes.
48 million, I'm going 53 million, I go, where are you coming up with this? And
Well, I
when
know
they-
there were some
they have coffee
recent
with the
convers,
$53 million people.
looking at, you can go out there and you can see what, GFOA, which is, accounting standards, or, the comptroller's never gonna give a specific finite range. Our
That's why they never
auditors
have.
usually, our auditors, when they come in, and present our financial statements, we've in the past asked them to share some comparables with other counties. I did, the last time we, updated the financial management policy, as you may recall, I had, researched several other counties' fund balance policies and financial management policies, and we, kind of, I had presented, the findings, and, we had changed it to, be based on our appropriations, because that's what we have to fund every year, is our appropriations, so.
And I'm not being critical of it, or, I just want a number.
Yes.
Just within,
I will give you the number, but I think it's important for consistent communication that a message is based on the county's financial management policy to be
Yes.
between 5% and 15%. These are the numbers.
yes.
Because that's what we're basing our financial management policy is something that's been adopted by
But
the
when I'm out
legislature.
in the
but
real
it-
world, Katie, they want to know
The number, yes, but I think
Yeah.
context
Where it
is always
actually is.
important, and.
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
And
Sitting
I-
here, I get it, but out there, people,
But I know, but when you hear other people say something like, well, 2 months of revenue and it should be 16%, well, that's not our measure.
right.
So I think it's important to focus on what our measure is and where we are within that range.
Totally agree. I just am looking for a number. I mean, it can be plus or minus. It's just, like I say, when you hear 628 billion, you just go, come on, folks, let's be a little.
I think some of those
Well, and
numbers
then they
came
do,
from
they ask me,
other
well, what
sources.
is the number? And I go, well, we don't have it quite yet, but so I would just kind of just for me, I'd like to be able to say 31 million. And then we can argue how we got to that. I know how we got to it, but we can, okay, thank you. I'm done.
Tom, you were moving.
Oh,
forward
no,
there.
I was gonna agree with you. I want that number too, because I'm one of those guys saying,
We got
we should
53 million.
Cut
He's
the,
the 53.
I am not, no,
No, he was not the
I
one
try to
that
be
said
as accurate as possible.
No, it's just helps
And,
us.
and I guess, but my question has always been, when is
Fake
that
news.
point when we say, yeah, it's high enough that a tax cut is a valid thing right now? You know, so 30 million would be the number I would give now to people,
I say, yes.
30.5.
And
And I would say that that's within that range, and I would say
It's not on the high side.
it's not,
It's right in the
yeah,
middle.
and it's not as high as it's been, and
Not
there are reasons
overtaxing.
for that, and,
yeah.
yeah,
And
But it's just nice to have the number.
right. mhm.
Sorry.
And it sounds like a lot, but our total budget being 300 million, that surprises people.
Oh, yeah.
I think that they don't
Yeah.
realize all
Everything
that the county
surprises
does.
people 'cause they don't know.
They don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and I
Yeah.
mean, look at something as basic as infrastructure maintenance. I mean, power washing the HRC building was budgeted at $500,000. It does not cost you that much to power wash your house.
No.
So it's not an apples to apples comparison if you're looking at it from
Yeah.
a regular person's day-to-day perspective. I mean, our operation is obviously exponentially larger, so it's, you know, there's a lot of other things to consider
And I
when
have my
looking
own
at what our
power
needs
washer.
are gonna be. I do, you can borrow mine.
I do,
Oh, you do?
so I don't need you.
Yeah, so
Send
it's
it
just,
over to
you
the
know,
HRC.
it's difficult because it's a, you know, it's a perception thing, and understandably so. I mean, you know, if you're not in it, you don't really realize how massive an operation the county's
But with all that
everything
being
really
said,
is.
and I'll
so.
say it only one more time, it's just nice to have a
Oh, sure.
number.
Absolutely.
You can talk
Absolutely.
some people off the ledge, you can talk, you know, it's
Or,
just,
Yeah, you know, and I just, you know, as I was looking through this and as we were working through these last sheets, even you go back to the first handout with the surpluses and deficits, and I tried to look at things that are in our control completely in the sense of we can manage it as best we can. And what are other things that are services that we need to provide and are much harder to predict, and funding necessarily isn't always tied with it. And, you know, you know, looking at those things that we can control, we're fairly correct. You know, I mean, the percentages are very small. Some of those things that we are having a hard time to predict, and maybe are requirements and mandates that we don't necessarily you know, have abilities to control some of those things. We just we pay the bill, which I'm not, you know, there are services that are needed. It's just that's the way it's budgeted and managed. And, you know, those numbers are certainly much higher than those things that we can control. So that just shows that, you know, our departments are doing the best that they can. Everyone that's looking at these numbers, these budgets, these pluses or minuses is doing the best that they can where they can. And not even to say that, you know, I hate to pick on the social services department, you're doing the best that you can. So,
that's all we ask is, Sam,
but,
just do the best you can.
you know, you're doing the best that you can, and we understand that, and that's a hard target to hit, it really is. Yeah, you know, those ones are just much harder to predict and to adjust. So Wood would only assume that you're gonna have variances in potentially very large variances from year to year. So, but the ones that are more predictable or controllable and also managed solely by the county were coming in fairly accurate, so.
And we appreciate what you guys do. My questions are more just, I'm not questioning.
Oh, of course not.
I'm trying to understand.
Yes.
There's a difference, you know, you guys.
that's
know
why
what
we're here, Bob.
Yes.
No, that I
You
understand.
understand.
I'm not questioning that. I sometimes it sounds like we're questioning.
No,
I'm not questioning,
I don't think
it's
any
trying
of
to
us take
understand,
it
and I'm
that
not
way. It's-
apologizing either.
Shouldn't.
And one thing else, you know, every year, we make mistakes, you know, and everyone has done a very good job at saying, well, it was a mistake, but, you know, we've corrected it for next year. So I thank everyone for taking the ownership of a mistake too, and just say, look, it's an oversight. And, you know, we had so many moving strings or moving parts, or we just didn't understand it right. that's gonna happen is in the budget process too, and, you know, looking back at the budget last year, we had some mistakes, but, you know, every year we will. Next year, there'll be something, and, you know, you just, try to mitigate those, and I think we do the best we can with those also.
It's not an exact science.
Certainly not.
That's what we're here for.
Any other questions or comments with the latest discussion items? Anyone else have anything that they wish to bring under other today? So just for a follow-up, we will be revisiting some of this in the next couple of months, and just to, you know, having those final numbers, but also moving forward, so, good. If there's no other order of business, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, and we are adjourned.
Opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your opposition.
Yes.
Okay. I know, no, and it,
Because that's usually the conversation. That's not how you drive.
Yeah.
How you